what's up? Ken from Palm Beach Dyno here. Welcome to the latest episode of the Hit the Brakes podcast, where we sit down and have long conversations with industry leaders and racers. Today's guest really needs no introduction. Longtime NMRA racer, multi-time champion, MIR World Cup champion. Please welcome Carlos Sobrino.
Welcome to the show, Carlos. I can't believe you're here at Palm Beach Dyno. We've been friends forever. We don't get to see you here in person very often. Thanks for coming to do the podcast. Super important to me to have people like you on here, so thanks for coming. Obviously, a lot of people on the internet know who you are, but for those people that don't, you're one of the Coyote Kings, especially when it comes to naturally aspirated. But of course, your history starts way before the Coyote ever existed. So I'd like to start there. I know you for probably 20 plus years now. Yeah, it's been a long time. But I don't even know your history before me.
Right.
I know you from NMRA, of course, but where did the car thing start for you? Like, was it just totally by chance, or were you brought up around it? How did it start for you?
Well, it's great to be here.
Thanks.
Finally, we've been talking about this for months, and I finally said, let's do it. Let's do it. You were like, come on down, and here I am.
Yeah.
I left Jersey, it was 44 degrees. I'm here, and it's 85 degrees. I love it.
And you also get you're the very first person to fly in specifically for the podcast, so that was very cool.
I feel special. Like I
Thank you.
said, we've been talking about it forever. I'm like, if I don't do it now, it's never going to happen, so let's just go ahead and just do it. We talked on Monday, and I'm like, okay, right now, Saturday. Boom, 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 boom.
I didn't expect you to actually do it, and I was like, oh shit! You actually
10
booked the
minutes
flight.
later, I'm like, hey, can you pick me up at the airport?
Yeah.
You're like, F you, dude, Uber. What do you want from me? Everything. So, okay. So yeah, I was raised, my dad was a car guy. Mm-hmm. My uncle was a car guy. My uncle, it was funny because when I was a kid, he actually had an Eleanor. But I didn't know it was an Eleanor. Right. It was like a 67, 68. Beautiful car. He never drove it. He had it in his yard thrown there. But I was like, there's a little kid. I'm like, man, that's a badass Mustang. Then my father got a Mustang. And it was funny because he had a 67 Mustang, my dad. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about, I'm 8, 9 years old.
And what time frame is this?
Oh, this
what
is
year?
the 70s.
70s?
Yeah, this is the 70s. And he bought my sister a 68 Camaro. Mm-hmm. And we lived on the 3rd floor because we lived in a ghetto. And I'm looking down one day, and the Mustang's outside, and the Camaro's outside in front of the house. And I'm like, I'm a Mustang guy, but that Camaro looks really good. That's a really nice Camaro. Thank God my sister didn't like it, and he sold it, and he bought her a Nissan Pulsar. He was more practical. Here's a Nissan Pulsar. You're fine. So, yeah, this is the 70s, and my father had a repair shop, so I started, I was kind of.
Now, I know you from Jersey. Is this in Jersey?
It's all in Jersey.
Okay. All
in Jersey, yeah. Yeah, in North Bergen. So he had a gas station with a partner. Every day I would take a bus after school about, 7 miles to pump gas for $1 an hour.
Right.
Slave labor. My dad was Chinese. So $1 an hour, and I would just save up money. And then when I was 15, he bought a 69 Mustang, 2-barrel. I didn't know, 2-barrel, 4-barrel back then was a 69 Mustang. It was a Grande with the trunk and automatic. It was V8. And I was like, I want that car. And he's like, okay, so you got 2 years to pay for it because I can't drive till I'm 17 anyway. Long story short, I got the car. He painted it for me before I got my license. That was the first car I went down the track in. That was in, I'm going to say 85, maybe 1985. Mm-hmm. So I went down, and I still remember the very first pass I ever made. I remember it like it was yesterday. I did the one-wheel burnout because it's a cheap model Mustang.
Right.
All I remember was my heartbeat. Boom, 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 boom. When I pulled up to the staging beams, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're at 16.2 at like 85 miles an hour.
Yeah, and in your case, like you've been looking forward to this for a long time, I assume, right?
Well,
since
yeah,
you're into cars, like I can't wait till I go to the track. Can't wait till I go.
Right, this is English town, so I'm like,
it's big
English
leagues
town,
right away. Yeah.
I'm whatever, I'm 17, 18 years old.
Right.
I think around 16 was a pig. Then I remember my buddy had an 85 Mustang. Now those were ugly back then. There wasn't a big Fox body thing back then. They were still ugly cars.
Right.
Because up to 84, they were pretty much slugs. Mm-hmm. So my buddy had an 85, and I remember he smoked me so bad. He left me in the weeds. And I'm like, what's in that hood of that car? And he's like, oh, it's just a 302, just like your 69 Mustang.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
like, that ain't like my 69 Mustang. So then my mom happened to pass away. So we had a little insurance money from her life insurance. So my dad said, you know what? Here's $5,000. The rest is on you. Buy a car. So I went right to the Chevy dealer, looked at the Corvette.
Nice.
It's a 86 Corvette. Nah, couldn't afford that. It's like $30,000.
Yeah.
I went right to the Buick dealer for a Grand National. I know, right? Too much for brand loyalty.
Right.
Went for a Grand National. They hardly had any left, and they were like stupid money because that was the last year of the Grand National. So I'm like, oh, well, let's go find a Ford. And went to the dealer, and they had 3 86s there, 86 GTs. You know, one was automatic, one had T-tops, and one was just medium Canyon, Irish red, whatever the hell it is. And it was a stick car. And I was like, I could afford this. And that's it. The rest, and then my friend with the 85 still kicked my ass. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? He goes, what'd you shift it at? I go, about 3,500. He's like, what? He goes, what? I go, yeah. He goes, no, go to 5,000. I'm like, 5,000? Are you crazy, dude? This thing's got warranty. About 2 weeks later, I smoked his ass. And that was the beginning of the whole Fox Body 5.0 drag racing thing. And then every time I would get beat, and I was poor back then. I wasn't, I was pumping gas for $1 an hour. Well, back then I actually had a better job. But I started just experimenting with the car. Being that was the first year of the 86, that was the first year of fuel injection. My father's mechanics at his shop were carburetor guys. They were older guys. They'd never seen fuel injection. So here I am with my 86 with fuel injection, and they're like, we ain't touching that. So that's when I started going to the track and looking at other people's cars and seeing what they were doing. And I'm like, okay, So I learned on fuel injection because I have a repair shop now, but I learned on fuel injection. We're carburetor now. That's second nature to me.
Right.
I'm like, 4 screws.
Yeah.
So that was it. And then the car just kept getting faster and faster. And I just kept modding it and modding it and modding it.
So you were at the beginning of the Mustang's been famous for its whole life, but it really changed tone at that point, right? Where it really became a performance car. Right.
It was either the late 60s, early 70s Mustangs. Then you had that ugly phase. And up to the 84, even though the 84s were quick, but they had the single exhaust and the 7.5 rear. So they were better, but the 85s really came to life. And then the 86s, forget about it. I mean, we used to go to English Town. Me and my friend Ernie, we used to go all the time because that's all we did. It was weekends, it's 45 minutes away from my house. We used to go and Storm and Norman used to drive in with his convertible GT, literally jack his car up, take his tires off, tie him up and chain him against the fence, and nobody would steal his tires. And it's funny because when they were walking by, me and Ernie were walking by the back of his car, and we were young and arrogant, and he looks under his hood and he goes, "You guys got Mustangs?" We're like, "Yeah." He goes, "Come here." So we went, what the hell's this old man, this pervert old man want, We go over there and he goes, "Aluminum underdrive pulleys, Elizabeth Ford, get them." I know I said an expletive to him, like, get the F out of here. And we walked away. I'm like, look at this retard with aluminum pulleys. They don't do shit. He had the first set of underdrive pulleys.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he was there going, guys, you got to get these. And I'm like, that doesn't do shit. So we walked away and then he just kept getting faster and faster. And he would drive to the track. He remember he had the old cell phone tower next to his shifter back in the 80s, Miami Vice stuff.
Right.
And his license plate said my other car is a Porsche. And I used to bust his nuts. I go, well, which is faster, this or your Porsche? He goes, oh, no, this is. He goes, does your Porsche say my other car's a Mustang? I was really on his ass, though, because he was a local racer with us. He was an English Town guy.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Where were you guys in age? He's an older guy than you?
Oh, yeah. By a lot. Storm and Norman?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was much older. He was probably 20 years older than me.
Right. So he was like, you were the kid coming in and he's already had some experience. I'm assuming he didn't start messing with cars right when those came out. He had been messing with other stuff earlier? Or
I don't know his history. Yeah. I know he had a Roush sticker on the windshield.
I know the name, but it's
Right. Well, he's pretty much the guy who laid down the road work for the 5.0s.
Right.
Because, he literally had a 12-second Mustang in 1987. A convertible, stick convertible. Roush built the motor. He had nitrous on it. He had big slicks on it, but he drove it to the track.
Right.
So we were all running, high 13s with our stock Mustangs. They didn't make anything for these cars.
Right.
They didn't make a thing. Like I said, the first thing was underdrive pulleys. I mean, my car was a speed density car. So I started making scoops out of sheet metal and making a ram air from Home Depot directly right to the throttle body. And then I would put a girl stocking at the bottom of the scoop at the hose where it meet the scoop.
Yeah.
And a stocking there. That's my air filter. It'll stop a pigeon, but it ain't going to stop rocks. But those are the good old days where...
When was the first time you decided, hey, what if we twist this distributor a little bit? What's going to happen?
Oh, that was, what was that magazine? Drag Illustrated. Drag Illustrated, because they had one, what is his name? Tony DeFeo, maybe? DeFeo? He had a great write-up. I know anybody over 55 that owns a Mustang knows what I'm talking about. He's the king of the Hemis.
Right.
But he bought an LX for like $13,000, sticks, strips, crank windows. And he goes, and it's funny, in the article, he goes, first thing you do is turn the timing up 13 degrees. And then he writes in the article, I'll wait here till all you Mustang guys come back from your... I'm like, dude, he was so right, because I just grabbed my timing gun. I'm like, 13 degrees, and pull the sway bar off. I'm like, pull the sway bar off. The rest of the car was stripped. I had not gutted cats, but they were cats that looked like cats.
Right. Back then, I'm not sure if we'll ever get a time like that again. Well, I guess the 24 Mustang's kind of like that now a little bit because you can't tune them. So people are back to like doing non-standard things, right, or things you wouldn't do on an earlier Mustang because, right now we just tune anything prior to 24, but with 24 you can't tune it. So guys are trying to do all these little type things. Right. So the hot rodding thing mentality has to come out a little bit more, but obviously from there to now is insane. But when I got to meet you for the first time was I couldn't tell you the year, but it was NMRA. Yep. I probably started going to NMRA in 2004, I think. And I'm not sure I met you right away. I remember we bought Tim Duncan, not me, but the guy that I was working with at the time, bought Tim Duncan's factory stock car. Remember Gene? Yeah. We bought Tim Duncan's factory stock car, and then we came to Bradenton, I think, for the very first time in 2004. I have never gone to a race in my life. We went from Ohio to Bradenton. It was like, what the? And it was a total friggin' nightmare. And that's even after buying. I don't know if Tim was winning, but it was a competitive car.
He wasn't winning.
No, he wasn't winning. But
neither was I, though.
But it was in the ballpark. It wasn't a crap car.
Back then, there were 13-second cars. Yeah, factory stock was 13, 14 seconds, the way it should be. So it was kind of fun.
Yeah, and then you probably came on my radar. As hey, there's Crazy Carlos over there. And at that time, I believe you had the
trooper car.
The trooper car.
Yeah.
So how do you get from just getting into the 5.0 scene and then fast forward to when did you start racing at all, like competitively, not test and tune and stuff like that, but to a race?
Well, unbeknownst to many people that follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I was all about street racing. It was all about street racing. I remember,
and that's a big culture in the Northeast, period, right?
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, it was huge. You could pick any night of the week and pick any city, and you'll get a crowd. I mean, we literally used to race in Staten Island on Thursday nights. We used to go, and it was a car show first, and then everybody would go. I think it was Forest Ave or South Ave. I don't remember. They had ice cream trucks. They literally had ice cream trucks and ambulances on the street racing. That's how packed it was.
That's awesome.
But the thing is, since I was poor, I learned how to make a car faster just by eliminating stuff and changing stuff. Like I got a set of Lakewood slap bars for like $50. We put a 373 gear in the car, and I just started gutting the car and gutting and gutting. I mean, it's funny because when I just got faster, and I would get McCreary tires. They were $45 each, these dirt tires, but they stuck on the street. They lasted about 10 miles, but they hooked on the street. So I put these McCreary's on. I'm pulling wheelies on the street with the spare space saver fronts and all that. I'm talking about 88, 89 now. So, take the upper intake off your 86, put the 87 intake on because it's got a bigger throttle body, and then 1.7 rockers and timing and lightweight. And that's pretty much all you need. An electric water pump on my car with the little belt driven for like $30 that I got it in a swap meet. So it was all these little tricks, and the car was dominating the streets. Staten Island, Hunts Point, all the street racing.
So where did, I don't know if you ever went down this path, but I would assume with street racing in general, Nitrous at some point became
I got a good story
factor.
for that.
Yeah, because this is all stuff that's totally foreign to me because it's funny that you mentioned Staten Island. I grew up on Staten Island and people ask me questions and I go, well, I grew up in New York and obviously you're street racing on Forest Avenue. I lived like 3 inches from Forest Avenue, you know, but to me, I wasn't exposed to that. So it's kind of a good example of like, it's about who you surround yourself with, you know, and just a lot of times it's not up to you. It just came via your
I was kind of like the leaderish sort of, because I was like we had 20, we used to roll 20 cars deep.
But you got in, but your dad was a big, you know, like
it was a car oriented family.
Right. And like, I didn't come from a car oriented family. So like in my mind, I'm like, oh, there was no racing going on back when I lived on Staten Island. I guarantee that obviously there was. Well, you know, you're a little older than me, but you know, when I look back on those times, I'm like, it wasn't even on my cars. Basically, the only thing that was on my radar was like the guy down the street had a 57 Chevy that was like cool looking. And that was cool to me.
And he fired up on Sundays.
And I had Lamborghinis on my wall. But what you were experiencing there, right? 5 feet from where I lived was like
the beginning
awesome.
Of the whole thing.
Let me hear the Nitrous story.
All right. So I got my Mustang at that point was running like mid 12s. All motor, stock motor, except for the rocker arms and some catalytic work and floor masters with dumps and a gear. Very lightweight car. When one of my best friends I took him for a ride once now, and he's like, bro, this is like a garbage can on wheels. No AC, no heat, nothing. It was like stripped. But that was my daily. That was the only car I had.
Right.
So that was my daily. And so then I had a buddy of mine, Gus, big block Chevy, 69 Chevelle, beautiful car. He's got like 3 of them. But I know he had Nitrous. So he's like, oh, you know, him and all the Chevy guys were like, we're very good friends. We kill for each other. But when it comes to cars, it's like, I'm Ford, you're Chevy, get away. And he's like, well, I'll smoke your Mustang. And I'm like, dude, no Nitrous. He goes, no Nitrous. So we go down West Side Ave where we used to race. And no lie, I took about 3 cars on him off the line. And this motherfucker came by me like a freight train. Wow, like you sprayed it. No, I didn't. I go, okay, you didn't spray it. So then one of my crew guys, Joey, was in tight with CompuCar at the time. So I go, Joey, get me Nitrous. We would put Nitrous on this car because I'm going to rate. I'm going to say, okay, you didn't use the Nitrous before? Use it now because I'm going to use it. He never raced me again.
No, that's
because then he'd be like 20 years later. He's like, I juiced you. I go, I know you did. Nobody passes me like that, bro. Yeah. And all the Chevy guys were on the sidelines. Yay, Ford sucks. Chevy wins. I'm like, he cheated. He's a big block with Nitrous.
That's so funny.
So I got the Nitrous bug there.
Yeah.
And it was awesome.
Obviously Nitrous was like the obvious choice back then because
there was no blowers.
Supercharger, really. If there was, it was like somebody messing around and like experimenting maybe back then.
Not even.
No.
Not even.
Yep.
The late 80s.
I mean, you didn't even mention a camshaft in that thing.
No, there was no cam. There was, I mean, eventually.
Yeah.
I don't even know what year it came out. The B303 came out.
Yeah.
I never put a cam in it. I'm like, I'm getting pretty good with this 1.7 rocker arms.
Right.
So you did the math and it's kind of like, well, and I have a speed density car. The cam is not going to like the cam.
Right.
So I just kept it that way because it worked. It was a simple formula that worked.
Right.
And so the Nitrous became a lot of fun. That was just, you know, now I'm just killing people. And I remember one story. I tell Evan Smith all the time because he worked at Englishtown. So I come out, no roll bar, nothing. I come out around 11 something with the Nitrous. So I'm like, I got my time slip. They're not throwing me out yet. I go back around. I get in the staging lanes. Nobody's throwing me out. I go under the tower at Englishtown, and they're like, you to the tower. I'm like, son of a bitch. So I go up there, and it's Evan Smith. This is before he was Evan, Reverend Evan and all that. And he's like, you know, you went too fast. You don't have a roll bar in the car. I go, yeah, I know. It's my first time with Nitrous. You know, I'm just experimenting. He goes, well, you can't run it. He goes, you could take the Nitrous out. And I'm like, no. And he goes, or you could take the slicks off. And I was like, he goes, but it's funny because he goes, if you do take the slicks off, can I borrow them for my car? I go, you son of a bitch, get out. You want to take my tires?
Well, that's so funny though, because here you are going too fast. So they're going to be like, well, you can make the same power, but let's make it more dangerous.
Yeah. Because he wanted to borrow my tires. He had an 88 LX.
Right.
He goes, that's my car over there. If you don't want to take the tires off, can I borrow them? I'm like, I'm going home.
Oh, man.
Excuse, F you guys, I'm going home. Like, I'm not taking my time. I'm going back to the streets. So it was all about street racing. And then a few years later, I guess, then I got married, sold the car, mini tub did a bunch of stuff to the car, and I got married. That was it. End of story. But then years later, to fast forward to where we met, I heard of this NMRA thing. And I was like, factory stock. Oh, shit. I used to run pretty good in the stock format. You know, my little factory stock car ran 12s. So I bought a car in Canada, a white LX. The guy delivered it from Canada to Jersey. When I got there, it was a real shit box. I'm like, firewalls pushed in. Dude, this thing was in an accident. Okay, I'll take $1,000 off. So I bought this white LX hatchback. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do all the factory, you know, all the stock stuff that I did back in the day. This is now the year 2000, I think. I'm going back to 1989. I'm going to do all the things that I did to that other Mustang to this one and go dominate NMRA factory stock. I got my ass handed to me so bad on the first trip. It was with AGCO, the first NMRA race. I think it was 2000 or 2001. Whatever the second year of NMRA was. And I got my ass handed to me on the first pass. And I was like, ooh, these guys are serious. My little stalker ain't going to cut it like what I knew.
Right.
So then you just learn more. You know what I mean? As soon as you get...
And it's about laps, right? Just like when you're doing that kind of stuff, when you're doing, you know, that's a lot of things people don't understand. And you probably have the best look at that as anybody else is when you're just comparing random cars, street racing cars especially, right? Because they could have almost anything done to them. Whereas now you're racing a class that has a very specific rule set.
Yeah.
It levels the playing field as long as, you know, everybody's following the rules, which NMRA, I don't know, back then, my time in NMRA, they were very strict on rules and like, you know, you could tear other people down. So I assume it was kind of like that back then or a little bit.
Yeah.
So, you know, here you are, and this happens today, right? People think they're badass on the street, and then it's like, okay, you know, all the mystery's gone. Here's exactly what you could do to your car, and we're going to check every one of those things. If you're too fast, now all of a sudden it gets 10 times harder. You know, so
Yep. Definitely, it's like I said, it humbles you when you step into an arena that you don't know, that you think you know.
Right.
You're like, oh, I'm good here. I'm going to try that over there. You know, and I'm like, I suck. Like, I don't know shit.
Right.
These guys are doing something right. So it makes you, and you like the class. So you're like, well, I gotta work harder.
Yep.
You know, I'm not going to rest on my laurels from the 80s in 2001. So then I guess we met a couple of years later because you came in 04, but I had already been there 3 years. Unlimited. I was like, you know, AGCO, maybe Ohio.
Kind of getting your feet wet.
The closer races. You know, I wasn't, car, I had an open trailer with like an old Suburban.
Right.
You know, it's like everybody else. You start here.
Right.
You know, but back then I wasn't too serious about it anyway. I was kind of like just having more fun.
Right.
I mean, I didn't win my first race for 10 years.
Right.
In NMRA.
Yeah, and you were in that same class for that long.
Yeah. But I didn't win a race. You know, the first race was 10 years. The first race I won when I finally said I'm getting serious about this.
Well, let's talk about that for just a second, because I think that's an important lesson for people.
Yeah.
Right. I know a lot of people that want to race and then they get ready to go to the race and they're like, I'm not ready. My car is not going to win, all that stuff. But here you are going to 10 years of races, maybe not every single race, but a lot of races.
Right.
So, and I'd be the same way, but what motivated you to keep going? Like, you know, obviously you're not going there because you feel like you had a chance to win necessarily.
Yeah, you always do.
Well, you have a chance, but like,
you think you might win. Maybe I'll get lucky. You know, back then it's more like maybe I'll get lucky and I'll win. Where instead of like, you know what, I'm going to put a lot of time and effort into this to try to win. Yep. So it's kind of like, I just went for the party.
That's what I'm getting at. Not just the partying, but the people, the environment, the whole thing, right? I mean, you know, unfortunately, nowadays NMRA is a little different than it used to be.
We grew up.
Yeah. Well, but you know, the heads up racing isn't what it used to be, and that's not NMRA's fault. I don't think in particular. It's just the environment or the performance world or whatever. But you know, I think what people don't get is how much fun it's to be, the people that don't race, how much fun it is to just be at the drag strip at a real race where you're I love going to test and tune and setting a new best. But after a while, if you know what your car can run, in this case, you're running a factory stock, all motor car. It's not like, oh, let me add 2 more pounds of boost. Once you get to a certain point,
right,
it's not a big deal. But the minute you're side by side with another car, even if you just win in a round or 2 here or there, and you have no chance at winning, even though you want to win, you think you could win, you have no chance maybe. But even if you're just real close to somebody,
it gives you hope
in a real race. It's exciting, right? Because you're like, oh, I'm starting to pull on them or whatever, and even myself, I've been doing this a long time, but you've been in competitive heads up races like 100 to 1 of me, because I just unfortunately haven't had the time to race a series for a long period of time, and I plan to get to that eventually, although I better get to it soon. So what was the catalyst after 10 years of not winning a race that made you go, you know what, it's time for me to win a race and do whatever it takes? And what did it take?
When the hangover lasts longer than the party, it's time to stop the partying.
I remember, and I don't know if this was before you won your first race, but it was after we knew each other, maybe not super good. But it was Saturday, right? People that don't know, NMRA is usually like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday deal. It's Saturday, and we're in the lanes. No Carlos. I was like, hey, anybody seen Carlos? Yeah, he's asleep in the trailer. And you slept the entire day.
I missed all the Saturdays. I missed so many Saturdays, and I would just be laying in the back of the trailer. Not when people say trailer, no, it's not like a motorhome.
Right.
No, I'm in my closed 24-foot trailer, laying on the ramp.
It's like 100 degrees.
It's 100 degrees. I'm dying. I don't care. I'm asleep. But yeah, so eventually that got boring, the party, you know what I mean? Because literally you could walk to any pit back in the old days of NMRA. If you could find 20 parties in 20 different pits all through the night. And I would go to 20 of them. I would hit every single one. And then at 4 o'clock, they're like, oh, we'll go to bed. I'm like, what? What do you mean? It's only Saturday. It's only Friday night. So they were taking it more serious than me.
Right.
So I couldn't get mad at me not winning when I have that attitude and that whole lifestyle.
Right.
So I was kind of like cool with it. Then finally I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this, because I'm helping everybody else with their cars, because most of the guys in the class weren't mechanics.
Right.
They would have somebody build their cars, and then like, oh my God, my car won't start. Oh my God. I'd come over, I'd check it. Oh, it's your fuse blew, your fuel pump, whatever. So I'm like, the day I get serious, these guys are in trouble, because I can race the car and I know how to fix the car. When I stop fixing theirs and start paying attention to mine, and that's what happened. I got in really good with an engine builder, Chris Smith, our friend Jamie Robinson from Georgia.
Yep.
Because I had a $30 motor. I bought this motor off a scrap truck. The guy had it in an apple stuck in the lifter valley, and had it on a scrap metal truck. And I said, how much for that motor? He goes, $30. I'm like, okay. We grabbed it by the water pump, took it off. Thing was brand new.
Right.
It's a brand new fucking 5.0. So then, so Jamie's like, I got this good engine builder down in Georgia. I'm like, really? What's his name? He goes, Chris Smith. I was like, let me talk to him. Dude, this guy built me this crazy push rod motor.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's when I was getting serious. Like, okay, now I got a real motor. Let's do really well. And that's when we won the 2 championships with his motor.
Which was what, 11 and 12?
Yeah. 2011 and 12.
Real quick, because what you said as far as helping other people, at what point did you start, you own a repair shop, you do some performance work, but mostly like repair stuff. Where did that come into the picture? Were you already doing that for your living?
I opened the shop July of 2000.
Okay.
So
kind of right when you were starting back into the NMRA, around the same time?
Yeah, around the same time. That's why I figured it was good. I was divorced. I didn't have a wife to take my cars away. And my home and my bank account, my 401k and my mutual funds. All she left me was a wedding picture and a karaoke machine that I bought her. I'm like, okay, that's cool. I still have them too. So I had to shop. So it's kind of like the perfect time.
Right. Because
I have a shop, I have a lift, I have air guns, I can actually build a car. That's why we took 3 cars. We took my old 86 Mustang, which is now an ex-Pro 5.0 car, which it ran for like a month and it blew a motor up, so I never built it again. We took that white LX that I had and that Florida Trooper car.
Yep.
I remember one day we took all three, put them on the 3 lifts, and one car came out. That was the Trooper car. So we took the best parts of every car and put it in the Trooper car.
Okay.
And that's when the Trooper came out, and we're like, okay, now we're going to get more serious. This is like 2001 or 2, because that white LX was just junk.
Right.
So we made one car out of that one. And we had a shop to do it. Like I said, we had 3 lifts. Put 3 cars in, 1 comes out. The other 2 get scrapped. But you could do that when you have a shop. So yeah, I was more into it, but I wasn't really till like 2010 when I finished second in points. And I was like, and I beat Tommy Godfrey, which I had never beaten. You know, the corporate paid off racer. I hope he's watching. So we beat him, and that's when it got more serious. And then the next 2 years with Chris's crazy motor. I mean, we told Chris what it made on the dyno, because he didn't dyno. He goes, here's an engine. I know what's in it. It's, it's a toy.
Right.
He made like 403 horsepower at the wheels on Frank's PSI Frank's dyno. And the engine builder, Chris, he's like, how do you guys make that power? I know what's in that motor. It's shit in there. I don't know. You build a good motor. And that thing was just killer.
That's always good when your engine builder, you exceed the expectations of the builder himself. Usually it's the other way around. It's like, I built you the baddest motor in the world. And then you dyno and you're like, what?
It's funny because I guess he's a scholar of Ron Anderson.
Oh, okay.
Because Chris, the engine builder, is huge. I think he's an ex-Georgia State football
You still
player.
work with this guy,
right?
right?
Yeah, he built my new Coyote.
Yeah,
so
okay, which we're going to get to.
Right.
I'm super excited about
So
that.
it's funny because Ron taught him a lot. And Ron, Ron Anderson is like 2 feet tall. Chris is like 6'7", and Ron goes, if I didn't teach him, he'd kill me, he'd beat me up. Ron was scared of him. I'm like, good, I'm glad you taught him, because he learns well. So that was it. And then we won the 2 championships. We're going to go to a third. This is now, 2013. And the motor decided to get a little tack. And now, at that point, I was helping the Coyote stock guys, because I'm a factory stock guy.
Yep.
So I was teaching them
But you're still using a push rod in factory stock.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You're not using modular.
They weren't allowed. Coyotes weren't allowed yet.
Oh.
It was 2 valves.
You could have ran a modular, though,
You could have ran a 2 valve.
which is not like that takes a lot of special work to keep up with the push rod. And that's kind of how Coyote stock was born, because you have these different combinations, and it was more based off Pure Street than factory stock, but Pure Street was just factory stock on steroids a little bit. And the issue was balancing the rules between all the engines. And then, when the Coyote came out, that's why Coyote stock was able to succeed. Because
that was so far ahead of the 2 valve and the 4 valve. And
And then now if you tried to make a spec motor class before the Coyote, it would have been like, which one do you pick?
Yeah.
They all kind of suck stock. So you couldn't just say you have to run a stock 2 valve or a stock push rod.
Forget it. It's a waste of time.
And where you're going to get a stock push rod at that point.
Yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah. So, that's the Coyote was like transformative in all racing, and you can see where it goes now. I mean, it used to be like, oh, well, it's a pretty good motor, and now like the fastest guys in the world run that engine. So you were helping Coyote stock guys,
right? Because I was a factory stock guy. So Coyote stock had just invented this class.
Yep, me and
so
Steve.
We had all these new guys asking me questions, because I'm not a threat to them, because I'm in a different class, and I would like to help them. I would say, shift this way. The guys watching that know what I'm talking about, and shift this way, and don't do this and do that. And they're like, oh wow, cool. We had Tremix back then,
right?
And they were doing well. So then I was still running factory stock, but the car had started to slow down for some reason, and we're like, I hear a little tapping noise in the motor. This is for everybody out there to pay attention to the cheap shit that you buy. I had the same BBK throttle body forever. Not that it's a cheap throttle body; it's 10 years old. Things happen. The 2 little screws that hold the blade. Oh, one of the nuts fell off.
Oh, into the motor,
and it hit the piston. And the tolerances in that motor. If I have a push rod to keep up with a Coyote, you got to push the hell out of this thing. And it ruined the piston. And then it was like 16 weeks for another piston to be made, maybe even 6 months. I don't remember what Chris said. It was like, it's a long time to get another piston made. And I'm like, I'm buying a Coyote. Like, it's so much easier to just buy a Coyote. And these guys are going fast. So that's when I switched over to Coyote stock. And
so, obviously in the beginnings, and that was in the
third year. That was probably the third year of Coyote
where
stock.
It was really, it took a couple years to get Coyote Stock to where it was. Everybody looks at Coyote Stock now as like, oh, that's one of the best NA race. But the first couple of years, it was rough. There was 2 or 3 guys, maybe, you know, I think the first year there was 3 guys in that class.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was more.
No, I looked at, because I went and just to kind of refresh my memory, I went and looked at it. And I believe the first year there was only like, throughout the entire year, only 4 or 5 people entered it. And at a typical race, it was like Joe Charles, who I think
Jacob Lamb.
Yeah, Jacob was early, and
Justin, I think, Shane.
And then I think Shane was a little bit, not the first year, that Joe.
No, Shane was there the first year.
Was he?
I think he beat Justin in the final to give Joe Charles the championship.
Okay. And then Joe Guertin, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah.
Guertin. Yeah, he's still racing. He's doing Ultra Street or something now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then, you know, they wanted to really get automatics into that class or give them I guess automatics were always legal, but they had to run at the same weight, so nobody was going to run it.
Right.
And then they were like, oh, there's only like 3 or 4 cars. And I'm like, no, just give it time. And then I think it was like the 2nd or 3rd year, which is probably when you popped your head in.
Right, when I popped my head in too,
It went from like, I'm not sure about that class to like everybody started wanting to build cars for that class because I think they saw the benefit of like at the end of the year. I remember, you know, back when you were running factory stock, I was helping Steve Gifford and Victor Downs and Pure Street. And it started to become more about politics and coming up with a rules proposal and, you know, and I'm like, this is stupid. This is so fucking stupid. Don't we want to race? I remember one year we spent like 10 grand on Steve's motor on the off season. And then it got erased with rules after like the 2nd race.
Yep.
Because, hey, we were getting our ass kicked for 3 years straight. We made $10,000 worth of changes on an NA engine, and we got like 1 or 2 race benefit out of it because they're just like,
yep,
no more.
Too fast, get out.
Yep. So, you know, that's why I loved Coyote Stock so much. It just got to the point where, you know, obviously with any kind of heads up racing and people that don't understand heads up racing or haven't done it, you know, the big thing to think about is the gray area, right? Like when you do rules, you got to look for that gray area that's not, you're not cheating necessarily, but you're doing things that maybe other people don't.
You misinterpret it.
Yeah.
You kind of read it.
It gets into like interpreting the rules.
It depends. It's a very thin line.
It is. Yeah.
You know, because we all know people that have crossed that line and gotten caught, and they're like, that's how I read it. If you read that rule like that, what rule did you not read like that?
Because, I mean, full transparency, you know, I wasn't the racer, so technically it's not me, but, you know, Gifford got caught cheating. I was.
We got ratted out.
Yeah, we got screwed by the
that's,
engine, somebody working at the engine place because it was, you know, for those people that don't understand, you know, if you go really fast at a record or a competitor challenges you as a teardown, then they tear you down. But they found that shit on Steve's car like in 10 minutes
because they knew
exactly where it was. But
somebody ratted me out for the floor of the car when I bought the Joker car. That came from Rob Carujo. That was just his drag radial car. It was laying on the ground when he bought it. And he had an automatic, so he had the tunnel cut out somewhat. I got the car to the shop. Some kid comes by, looks at it. Oh, yeah. I go, I got to close the tunnel up, whatever. I'm just going to put a carpet over it. He ratted me out to the NMRA. Because I remember showing up to the first race, and we put like 3 layers of carpet on this thing. And I thought it was going to be a performance at man, because Tom Bates even said it. He goes, first thing he did was jack the car up, climbs underneath the car and looks up the tunnel. I'm like, what the how do you know? What is he going to the only spot that I'm cheating? Yeah. You know, and it's not really cheating because it's not a performance in hand, but it's not legal.
Yeah. Talk about a love-hate relationship. Tom Bates. I really like that guy. But, you know, back when we were racing, you know, we loved to hate him and complain about him, but
looking back,
it was great. You know,
he was a good guy.
And just the whole teardown process sucked when you were doing it. But when I look back on it, I go, dude, that shit doesn't happen anymore.
No,
like no heads up racing at our level does that anymore. No. They just craft the rules. You know, like MIR World Cup gets pretty strict, and they do hardcore tech beforehand, measuring turbos and all that. But there's usually not much teardown stuff, and they usually don't make rules as much as they used to specific to the engine. Right. They've realized like, well, we're better off limiting power adders or like in all motor stuff,
fuel,
stuff like that.
We were talking before about how you do this so many years, you kind of, the politics of it.
Yep.
So you learn, after 10, 12 years, that was actually my second championship. Bowling Green is the last race of the year for NMRA. So I always knew for the previous 11 years that Tom Bates would always tear down the top 2 qualifiers.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like tearing it down. I'm going to qualify third. So I kind of, lean back and qualify third. Last qualifying run, we pull into the thing. Tom Bates comes out, claps his hand. He goes, Mr. Sobrino, we're tearing down the top 3 today. I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, come on.
He knew your game.
I'm like, son, he knew exactly, which is good though, because like you said, it kept me honest.
Yep.
Kept everybody honest. He's like, we're doing the top 3 today. I'm like, you son of a bitch.
That was the best part, I think, about Tom, was he really enjoyed, doing his job, which was being a dick,
Right.
But that was his job, and he was very good at it. I remember long after Tom was gone, I would complain about tech. I'm like, nobody gets torn down anymore. Nobody gets torn down anymore.
Right.
Then one year at Bowling Green, I think it was Dave W. was the tech director, I'm talking about. And he tore down the entire factory stock class to show a piston.
Yeah.
Just because
nobody did it anymore.
And I was, no, he pointed at me. Like, he didn't say, hey, everybody's getting torn down because it can, but he pretty much said,
you're the cadet that broke the rule that everybody's got to do push-ups.
He basically said, everybody, we're getting complaints about nobody getting torn down, so we're tearing down everybody.
And you can thank that cadet for your push-ups.
And I get the piston out. We got to take a piston out, right? That's
out of a 4-valve.
Out of a 4-valve. Take it out, hand it to him, and he does this. It looks like a piston, and hands it back to me. So it was basically like a fuck
F
you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like you said, you won the championship, 11 and 12.
Yep.
And then 13, some engine issues. So now you transition into a place like Coyote Stock, right? So you kind of, obviously is way more to it, but you mentioned the engine was a big part of your factory stock.
Sure, with the whole thing.
Success.
Yeah.
Obviously with Coyote Stock, unless you're cheating, which I think most people were good on the engine itself as far as cheating. The playing field's pretty level. Obviously every engine's slightly different. Maybe one guy makes 4 or 5 more horsepower than the other guy, but it's a pretty level playing field. So how do you transition? How did Coyote Stock go for you in the beginning? I don't think in the first couple of years, it's not like you just went in and were,
one
or two right away. So, how did you feel when you first got into Coyote Stock, and what kind of things do you concentrate on, or is it just about everything,
Being that you're all in the same playing field. It's like IROC back in the day, you know what I mean? So it comes down to, you got to drive it a little better, because with Chris's motor in factory stock, I just made more power than everybody. So the driver could be a little bit off on the shift, and you could spin a little bit, and the clutch adjustment could be a little off, and you'll still win.
Right.
Because you'll be like, I got more power, that's it. But in Coyote Stock, it's kind of like, okay, the clutch has to be just right. I need data now. I got to download data and look at my clutch slip and look at this and that. But I think it was my first or second year in the class, I held the class record from the second race, which was Georgia, right to Bowling Green when Darren broke it. So I kind of caught it. I didn't win any races though. Bad luck. I had bad MSDs. I had bad 2-steps.
Was that the year that you finished? I was looking up through the points. I know your first really good finish was like 4th place in points.
Maybe, I don't remember.
Yeah, it might have been a year or two after that.
Yeah. So now it's been like, what, 23 years of points. I don't remember what year I finished. 10th or I remember the first.
Right, yeah.
And the second, the rest of them were kind of like, who cares? No jacket.
Yeah.
No ring, no jacket. I don't care.
Yeah.
So I held the record for that whole year. So I was kind of getting to the point of it, I couldn't get over the hump of winning. I just couldn't. I would mess up.
At this point, you have the record, but it's not like you were beating everybody by a 10th.
No.
A few thousands, hundreds.
Oh, yeah. It was.
So at the end of the day, even if you have the record, you could easily lose it on the tree even.
Right.
Because it's so tight.
Well, yeah, I did. On the tree.
Thanks for pointing it out,
if you ever saw my helmet those years, after I had a race with Jacob where the difference was like 0.001
right.
at the end, at the finish line. And then where I messed up was my peripheral vision. I saw him and I looked over real quick and I short shifted second. I was like, oh. Dude,
And
I
it
put
was just
tape
that,
on my helmet.
you know,
I taped up my helmet. So no more peripheral vision. Race the car. Drive your car. Forget about the other guy.
Right.
Just do your job. Why are you looking at the other guy's car? Because it's a pretty red car.
And that's good advice for any type of
Oh,
drag
yeah.
racing.
Just race. Do your race. Forget about the other guy. If you're doing what you got to do, you're going to win.
Yep.
You know, I remember just glancing over and hitting second gear. I'm like, why did I do that? Oh. And he just went, and I'm like, oh, no. And then I had electrical gremlins happen, clutch problems sometimes, and a bunch of shit that just kept me out of the winner's circle.
Yep.
And I had a story here, but so another thing was, and this is I'm responsible for the G101s in Coyote stock.
Let's go over that. Up until that point, people were using, and some people were still trying to use a T5, right? Or no?
Yes. Some guys were still using the T5. You're right. You're right, because it was lighter and
they were trying to still work that.
But at that level, when you got to have something. I mean,
and even the Tremix were breaking a ton.
Oh, we had 3.
Yeah,
I think every team had 3 Tremix.
Now, is that because of the trans or the way you guys were trying to shift it?
The trans.
Yeah, you think it was the trans?
I was using the clutch.
Yep.
I was literally using the clutch.
Okay.
I was using the clutch.
Yeah.
For almost all the gears.
Right. Now, do you think that was just a lack of technology at that point? Like, because obviously, guys are using Tremix nowadays and going 6s with them on the power.
A whole different Tremix, though.
But it's also clutch was involved.
Right. But that's a whole different Tremix, though.
Yeah.
We didn't have TKXs and Magnums. True. We had, what was it, the 500s and the 600s.
Yeah,
TKO,
that's true.
500, 600s.
Yep.
Which is a tow truck trans. You know what I mean? They had the rail in it and stuff.
All right.
So we had 3. So one day I sat down. I remember what race it was. And I broke one. Tim Matherly broke like 2. Another guy broke 1. And I sat down with NMRA Tech at 6:30 in the morning at the tent. And I said, we got to talk, guys. This is, okay. I go, I got 3 transmissions. They're $5,000 each. My transmission package costs more than my engine. The engine was Gen 1.
Right, you're not bringing 2 or 3 engines.
Right.
Yeah.
I go, we break one, wait for Liberty, because only Liberty had the parts for it. Mm-hmm. And it's only one guy there, Brad Carroll, that was actually working on it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's one guy responsible for all these Tremix when he still has another job at Liberty fixing new pro mods and all that crap. So I go, we break one, send it to Liberty. Put the other one in. When that one breaks, we put the third one in. At that point, the first one's coming back. Mm-hmm. Now we send the second one to Liberty, break the third one, put the first one back in. I go, we need a G101. We need something better. I go, it's just better racing.
And where did you, I know you have a relationship with G-Force now.
Oh, yeah.
But was that already the case, or is this how you became friendly with G-Force? Like when
That's how I became friendly with them.
Yeah.
I didn't know them. I just knew they had a better product.
Right. So, but you just picked them because you knew about that trans?
Right. I knew about the trans. I knew it was a better trans. I remember that was on a Saturday morning.
Where was that trans used a lot before
G101s?
Yeah. Like everywhere?
Dude, every super stocker.
Okay.
Because it looks like a Muncie. It's a Muncie, it's a Muncie copy. It's just better. So I'd be using it everywhere. And guys, I mean, if that thing had a 5th gear, I would have put it in my street car.
Right.
That's how sweet it was, you know? But so the next day, I remember when we came home Monday, I ordered a G101. I go, I'm done with this. NMRA hadn't approved it yet.
Right, but you're like, either way.
I go, I'm getting one. I can't do this anymore. I can't be spending $3,000, $2,000 on the Tremix.
And on the G101, you got a lot of more flexibility with gear ratios, don't you?
Well, that was the thing. When I called, when my car at that time, I had a TKO 500, which had the 327 first gear. Mm-hmm. So when I called G-Force and I talked to Leonard, I go, I want a trans. What gear you want? I go, I want a 330 first gear. So we don't make a 330 first gear. I go, well, I want a 330 first gear. He's like, well, we don't make one.
We'll make it.
I go, well, I'll make one. He's like, okay, we'll figure something out and we'll make it. 3 days later, NMRA announces we're allowing G-Force G101As in a Coyote stock, but with limited gear ratios. I'm like, oh no, I just ordered a non-existent gear. So I call Leonard up. I go, Leonard, he goes, don't worry. They asked me what gear ratios and I put 330 in one. I go, okay. I go, thank you. I was like, oh shit, I'm screwed. I got to call him back and say, no, take that 330 out, put another gear in it.
Right.
So that was it. And then now you see the racing quality now.
I mean, honestly, I agree 100%. It transformed that class because you know, we did a lot of pure. I never competed in Coyote stock or helped anybody in Coyote stock, but pure, you know, that came from Pure Street, and we had the same issue in Pure Street, where, you know, not half the time, but very often you're watching racing and only one guy makes it to the end of the track. That's boring.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about who's winning the race. It's about who doesn't break.
Right.
Right. So, and then, I mean, now that you say it, man, when I watch Coyote stock now, it's super rare for both cars not to make it all the way down the track. It's like almost non-existent.
Very rare, right? It's a 1% deal now where one car might miss a shift or break a clutch or something.
Yeah. And then, you know,
that's racing.
It's very possible that if you didn't make that move to help push the G101, like it could have killed the class, because at a certain point
you give up.
You're like, you know, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
It's like,
you can't do it.
I can't have five
I got more money invested in transmissions than my engine package. I got $15,000 in transmissions and a $7,000 engine. I go, guys, they listened though. That guy was Dave W. and Frank Hoffman.
Yep.
And I think Raleigh was there. Not Raleigh. Raleigh was there. And Wolcott was there. And they listened because I threw numbers. I go, dude, we're spending, you know, you got a $6,000 motor with $15,000 transmissions.
Yeah.
And the racing sucks because you got guys breaking fast guys breaking all the time.
So, you know, I don't know how much you want to share, because it's not like you're doing that kind of racing anymore, and you don't have to give details, but you went from, you know, holding the record but not winning a race to what year did you win the championship in Coyote stock?
I never won a championship in Coyote stock.
Oh no, you won 2 races.
I won 2 races 1 year.
Right.
Where I took a year off.
But those were the only 2 races you went to that year.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, there's a very good chance you could have won the championship that year if you went to every race. You won 2 of 2.
No,
so even if you just did pretty good at the other races, you would have been in a sweet spot, because a lot of the times, depending on the year, champion didn't win that many races, whatever year it was. They might have won 1 or 2 races and then did pretty good. And that's how tight the racing was. So yeah, you didn't win a Coyote stock championship, but in my mind, you killed everybody those 2 races when you showed up. Yeah. And everybody was like probably happy when you didn't show up for the other races that year, because you had something figured out.
Yeah. Well, I took a whole year off. Yeah. Because before, I mean, at the shop, I had little Carlos. Little Carlos. I'd go to the racing, he'd run the shop. Then he finally said, I need a real job. I need a real paycheck. I need a real job, and I need a real boss. So he left. So I was like, ooh, that cuts out my whole traveling thing, because I can't close a business, you know.
And he used to come to races.
He comes to some of them. Some of them would come, but when he couldn't come, I knew the business was still running and there's still money coming in, and I'm here wasting it. Yep. You know, but he's making it. I'm wasting it. It's fine. Everything works. If we both come together, we had a really good week before. Right. So we could both waste money now. Yeah. So so that kind of cut back, but then I took the program, and since I couldn't, I put it on a dyno, and we were just messing with this car on a dyno. Yep. And messing with it and messing with it and messing with it. And I had the 28-inch tire. Nobody had a 28-inch tire. Yep. So I figured out with this gear ratio on the trans and this gear ratio in the back, this thing back half's like son of a bitch. But it won't do this off the line. Right. But you're keeping you're extending the sweet spot. Yep. And that's when I said, well, Maple Grove is close. You know, it's not really, I got to take a week off from work. Let me just go to Maple Grove. And we qualified 3rd or 4th. We called ourselves the Michigan Sandwich. Yep. Because every race, those 2 races that I went, it was the Michigan guys, me, Michigan guys, Randy Soper, Kevin McMullen.
Well, that's another good point to put out. You were, you know, Carlos helped you, little Carlos, but you were a one-man team.
Pretty much.
Kind of. You know what I mean? Like the Michigan.
Well, I got guys to do the grill. I got Marco and Charlie. Hi, guys.
No offense to them, but they were, I mean, as far as like who was racing, right? Where the Michigan guys, they were all helping each other. There might have been 2 or 3 guys that were teaming up against you, kind of, right? Like no matter.
Oh, I love that though.
No, I know, but that's what makes it a little bit more impressive, because when you have a 3-person race team, it's not like you're not getting into like pro racing where like one guy's going to let the other guy win and let the guy. But if this guy knows a little bit and this guy knows a little bit, and you got the minds of 3 people, you have tests of 3 cars. Oh, we tested that on this car, that worked. We need to do it to the other 2 cars, whereas you're doing everything on one car. Well, actually, let's back up just a little bit. At this point, you got rid of the Trooper. I mean, we totally skipped over when the Joker was born. I mean, you're known, you know, that's like, It's kind of like your nickname and the car's nickname, right? Kind of like, I mean, it's the car, but like people call you the Joker too.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'm an asshole.
I do at least.
Because I'm an asshole and Joker's kind of an asshole.
Yeah,
So it works out fine.
Where did that car come into the fray?
That was the second championship year. We switched cars in the middle of the year.
Now, I think I kind of remember, was there something wrong with the Trooper?
Yeah, it broke the torque boxes.
Ah, that's right.
Every time I get out of the car, I close the door and I hear, I'm like, what the hell is that noise? The car's settling in the back, crack. Yeah. And we had reinforced them already, but 10 years of, wheelies on BF Goodrich's ain't going to help.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the year, we had this white car laying around that I bought from Robbie, the Joker.
Yeah.
And we had that one just laying there on the ground. And I'm like, man, this car looks pretty good.
And you just bought that just because?
Because he was going to junk it.
Because it was available.
He was going to junk it.
Right.
And I'm like, I bought it for $1,000.
Oh, wow. That thing had a serious cage in it. It had a lot of bars in it. Well, you said it was a drag radial car before?
Yeah, well, he ran it. He won a couple of races in drag radial.
Oh, okay.
And I knew the guy who put the cage in, and I forgot the name of the guy who bought it now, which was the original owner who went to high school with that car.
Oh, wow.
Down in Georgia. He builds pro mods. Mm-hmm. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot your name. I'm sorry. So I bought it for $1,000. He was going to junk it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, this car, torque boxes look pretty good. Let's just swap middle of the year. We swap everything over. And that next race was Michigan. That's when Tom Bates got under the car and says, your tunnel's cut. I'm like, how'd you know?
Yeah. So what made you, I would guess most people that know you at all know what the car looked like. It had the diamond wrap pattern on it. Okay. Kind of looked like a little bit. Well, why don't you tell me how you got to that point?
Okay. When I first, it was a white hatchback, and the Trooper car was black.
Right.
So I took the nose off this and the rear bumper off the Trooper car and the doors that were lightened on the Trooper, so it looked like a cow. Right. So it was black and white, and I'm like, it could be like a California State Police car, but it's not really. So then I go, I want something different. So we ran that year, won the championship, and then in the off season, that's when I switched over to Coyote stock and all that. I was still running factory stock. I'm sorry, and I want something different. And this is, don't get mad, everybody. The ZL1 Camaro pulls out in the TV commercial. They're pulling it out of the trailer, and there's the wrap. There's the diamond wrap.
Because it's like the
hidden thing,
the camouflage kind of.
Yeah,
that they use when they're testing cars, like OEMs and stuff.
Right. It was funny because one guy, when I did that, they're like, that's what people do to hide, to camouflage the body. I go, yeah, because nobody knows what a fox body looks like.
Right.
Look at me. I extended it by 3 inches because I'm throwing it off with the diamond wrap. I'm like, dude, come on, it's a fox body. Right. So I saw that ZL1 and I was like, oh shit, I want that so bad. So I called my sticker guy up. I go, dude, Google this. Google ZL 2012 Z11, ZL1, whatever Camaro. And he's like, yeah, we could do that. I was like, and that's it. And now I'm stuck with it.
But, to me, I think when you're at the time, maybe even myself, I was probably like, what the fuck is Carlos doing? Why has he got that wrap on the car? But just like a lot of things that turn out to be really good, you don't get it at first. But then over time, it's like, that car became famous partly because it was so unique looking.
Right.
It was like, wow, and obviously combined with your personality and doing good at races, it was like the perfect recipe to make a car that's like going to be known for a long time. Yeah. So
it's funny because you mentioned that we were at Cecil testing once for World Cup. And when I went out, I pulled a 950 or something in testing. Mm-hmm. And I pulled back in and the tech guy's like, you don't have a window net. I go, dude, I got a license. I just didn't have time for the net. No, you can't run that fast. I go, so I slowed it down a couple of, just slow it down. So I slowed it down. Then the last pass, I went crazy again. And I see him chasing in the pits. And I'm like, how hard is it to find a checkered Mustang? If it was a black LX, he'd never find me. Right. Because there's 50 of them here. He's like, who's that guy that ran 950s with a black LX? Like, oh, there's that asshole with the checkered car. That's him. Get him, boys. And I'm like, that's a stupid paint job.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hide.
I was in a street race a couple of years ago, too. They were setting up a street race. Mm-hmm. And then I thought about it down in South Jersey because there's a really good street down there for street racing. It's better than the track, except it's this wide.
Right.
And I thought about it. I'm like, am I fucking retarded? I go, there's going to be 1,000 YouTube videos. Oh, look, Carlos Sobrino street racing. It's it's checkered Mustang. There's not another one like it. I'm like, nah, I'm too old for this shit.
Right.
So I'm like, it's a great paint job. The best thing about the paint job is what I realized after I did it, adults don't get it. Kids love it.
Yeah.
And I was that kid once. So every kid wants to sit in the car and they love it. Oh, it looks like a toy.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Fuck the adults.
Yeah.
Fuck
I love it now.
Right. It grows on you.
Yeah.
The best part about driving it, you don't see it.
So obviously, you know, even though you had a huge history before that, you got a lot of knowledge on coyotes and naturally aspirated coyotes. And so when you got into coyote stock, that was a Gen 1?
Yes.
And then so have you had all 3 generations?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And coyote stock or no? Did you do the Gen 3 in coyote stock?
I think, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably why you bought it, I'm guessing.
I think that's the one I won with.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the case. So, what's your opinion of all the different generations? Just, you know, slight improvements. Like if you were going to start today, a lot of people ask me this all the time. Like, which generation Mustang do you like the best? And to me, they're all, you know, a stock gen. Now, when we're talking naturally aspirated racing, it's way different than power adder, right? Because it's a power adder, Gen 1 stock is not going to work, right? You can only make 700-800 horsepower with it max, and it's going to throw a rod, which is the worst possible failure you can have in a setup like that.
I did.
Did you?
And a burnout, Braden said.
Well, there you go. So even naturally aspirated,
it does.
It does happen. So, you know, can you like really pinpoint any one of those generations that you liked better, or were they all about the same as far as?
It's tough because aside from coyote stock, you're limited. Yeah. When I do the outlaw stuff, with like World Cup and stuff like that, get the car light, put a tune in it, tune, Palm Beach dyno tune, you know, better fuel, all that shit. I mean, the Gen 1 went a 948. The Gen 2 went a 951. Mm-hmm. The Gen 3, that's a 9.0, but that's, you know, that was circumstances beyond that. Dude, I can't pick a better one, be honest with you. Yeah. The Gen 1 lasted 500 and something passes. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty good. NA. Yep. So threw a rod in the semis. Which I was like, son of a bitch, couldn't wait one more looking around. But I can't say that the one's better than the other. Yeah. I'm going to, no, you're wrong. I'm wrong. I'm going to say that the Gen 3 is probably better because of the RPM range. Yep. Yeah. You know, because I remember I threw like a 500 gear on the Gen 1 at World Cup. And I think you were helping me tune it. Mm-hmm. And I think about 1,000 foot, the thing was like 8,200 and just went, ah!
Yeah. The Gen 1s did not like that RPM.
It was like stuck at 8,100 and just went right through the traps at 8,100.
I want to get to World Cup, but before we get to World Cup, I want to wrap up the coyote stock conversation. Mm-hmm. Is there any one thing, like for instance, clutch? Because you can't touch the engine. There's got to be, you know, something that's making the cars different, right? Because you're going to have cars that are at the top of the pack. You have cars at the middle of the pack, and you got the new guys that are like, my car's broken, right? Like they don't know all the little tricks yet. They don't have the right guy helping them, all that stuff. So in general, what do you think is the biggest? I know it's a combination of a lot of little things, but if you had to really put your finger on any one thing, is it the clutch or suspension, or what do you think is really the key to a class like that?
It's more than that. It's clutch and suspension and the tamer and a driver and somebody who could read the data, because you got to know, you could have data. Like on my car, all I had was RPMs and dry shaft. That's it. I didn't want anything else. Yeah, I had a two channel tack. Right. Where you got the race pack, I got 65 things here I could read. I don't care about any of that. Right. I want to know how much slip I had. Yep. And I think the clutch is probably one of the biggest parts about it.
And back then, I believe you were running a clutch that really wasn't the most popular deal.
No,
right?
It became the most popular clutch in Coyote stock.
After you, though. Or while you were there.
While I was there.
Okay, but because you were running it, or just everybody was running it? Or?
I was running good.
Yeah. And what was that?
The Fidanza.
That's
the Fidanza V2. Yeah. But unfortunately, everybody wanted a free clutch. So Fidanza said, you know what? We're done clutches. We're not doing it anymore. Right. Because we're not making money. We're giving you guys all these clutches.
Yeah, they were the '1 clutch in Coyote stock, but they weren't really.
They were great clutches. Dude, I would get 50 passes out of that thing. Yep. And if you set it up just right, you get the nice little slip in the shift, and and when you would beat it, I slipped that clutch down the track, the whole pass, where the graph was straight.
Yeah.
And it came back to life 20 minutes later.
So how much went into a car like that, like reading track conditions and making adjustments? Or was it like because of the 28-inch tire and the slipper? It wasn't a slipper clutch. For those people that don't know, why don't you explain what the
all right,
what did you call it again?
The clutch tamer.
Clutch tamer.
Yeah.
What is that?
Okay, a screen door.
Exactly. Yeah.
Every house has a screen door. You have the main door and the screen door. You know, you open it and then it comes back and it goes, and then it closes.
Yep.
That little piston, some genius guy put some brackets on it with some knobs, and you put it on your clutch pedal.
Mm-hmm.
So what you do is when you let go of the clutch, it hits, then it goes and it raises up. So it's slipping your clutch for you.
Right.
Where, you know, some guys are like, I do that myself by my foot. Great. More power to you, hero. You know, but I got other things to worry about. I got to shift this thing real quick with a 330 first gear.
Yeah.
So that's what that does. And it's just a great tool.
So, but once you had that set up, like say you were at Maple Grove, for example, and you've got that set, you go to a new track, are you messing with the clutch tamer, or was it mostly?
But very little, because like I said, you can adjust the speed that it grabs the clutch. So that's the only thing I would adjust. If the track was not as good, you obviously give it a little more slip.
Gotcha.
You know, but the way I would do it is I would just go quarter turns because I couldn't see the knob. I had to hit it under the dashboard. So I do the burnout.
At first, that wasn't legal, right? I mean, it was like wasn't that one of the gray areas?
That was.
See, that that goes back to our earlier conversation. I believe it was not illegal.
No.
It was just not addressed. Right. And then I believe it kind of became controversial and they decided to make it specifically legal. Then they write it into the rules that it was, you know, they addressed it in the rules, I think.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so.
Where they were to clarify that it was allowed.
Yeah. It makes it a lot better racing though.
Yeah. So, you know, there's a guy out right now that's doing a bunch of stick shift racing. I think his name's Garrett Leach, and he's got a new product out that's very similar to that, but it's got some solenoids involved, and I think what it does is it disables it after you launch.
After the launch.
So how did that work for you guys? It didn't. It was there the whole time, and you just tapping the clutch for the shifts?
That was with the Tremec, it was harder.
Okay.
Because you had to use the clutch sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes. So, but if you have to find a sweet spot between, like I said, you had to set a 0 for the burnout.
Right.
And then the burnout, if you watch a certain red car from Pennsylvania that takes about 20 minutes to stage, he's down there adjusting his tamer.
Right.
Which is fine because I can do it on the fly. I just go quarter 6 times.
Right.
And then, you know, I know it's what it is.
So this new deal basically takes that extra little like tough part because it's basically just the solenoid. I think it has a switch on it where you could just turn it off.
I've seen that one.
Yeah.
I've seen that one. That one I think is illegal.
Oh, really?
Because, I mean, first of all, it's a G101.
You don't need it.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
Because you're just using the clutch really pretty much off the first. That's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you don't need that one. That's more for street guys.
Yeah.
A guy that drives it into the track and he wants, you know, doesn't burn his clutch up.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do things without the tamer, but you have to get an organic clutch. And that's about every 8 passes, you're switching disc.
Yeah, to be clear, the reason you need the tamer is more advanced clutches that were adjustable weren't allowed. Like a slipper.
No, we have the diaphragm we have to run diaphragm clutches.
Right, yeah.
You know, these things got 2,600 pounds of base pressure.
Yeah, people kind of don't necessarily understand that or realize that because you got all these crazy 6-second street cars that have these super fancy clutches and, you know.
No tamers, though.
Yeah.
They don't need it. They got a $4,000 clutch.
Yeah. And people think that, you know, it's a little bit of everything. You know, those cars are powerful as hell, but the big difference between when an 8-second stick car was like insanely fast to now it's a 6-second street car, it's mostly clutch technology, I think. Yeah. And electronics in general, traction
control. A lot of electronics in
control.
those cars because they jumped a whole second when they figured out how to shift it without the clutch.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever they call it. It's a name for it. It used to be a Watt box.
Yeah.
Now it's got another fancier name on it. But, you know, you hear them now. But before you used to see them
shift.
They
have I don't know if this is what you're talking about. They have a strain gauge on the shift handle, which basically knows when the shift handle's bending a minute amount when you put pressure on it, and then it
shuts off the
cuts the ignition.
Right. So they picked up a whole second with that.
Yeah.
Almost a full second.
And it's helps the trans.
Sure.
Because it unloads everything.
Sure.
Instead of the trans taking all that.
And it makes for better
load.
racing. They're all running 6s.
Yeah.
Before, stuck in the 7s.
And even those, most of the time, most of those guys make it down the track. I mean, not quite as often as a Coyote stock car, but they're still usually getting down the track. So, now you've won 2 races in Coyote stock that year. At what point did you start, even though all those are great accomplishments, I think one of your biggest accomplishments is winning all motor at Import versus Domestic, World Cup, whatever you'd like to call it. Because to me, NMRA is awesome, but it's very focused. It's all Mustangs or Fords at least. And then now you're out there racing any possible vehicle on the planet. There's all kinds of mixed rules. So, you get back to things being tough as far as not, you could very possibly be at a rules disadvantage. Coyote stock, you're not operating at a rules disadvantage because they all have the same rules. Whereas now, 1 year, for instance, the Honda's got the Nitro mix, which totally screwed us. But that was before that.
Right.
You started racing World Cup. What made you decide to go to that race? Did you go to that? There was crossover, right? You were doing NMRA and World Cup at the same time.
Well, the World Cup is in November.
Right.
So the season's over. Like as soon as the Bowling Green race would come around, the next day I'm stripping the car.
Right.
Because the rules were.
That basically became like the outlaw race for NMRA guys to go to.
Right.
Whether it's factory stock car or a Coyote stock.
Right. Because the rules were so. I mean, here we have stock Mustangs against Teddy Weaver with a built motor.
Right.
To his credit, that thing's badass. The Hondas too, they were built motors, and here we have these stock Coyotes coming in. So it was kind of like, well, lighten them up to X amount, but any fuel you want. And where like the Hondas have a fuel rule. It was just fun.
Because the way World Cup works, a lot of their classes is like they have crossover rules. If you're a Coyote stock car, you have specific rules.
Right.
If you come in with a Coyote that you built, you could still race, but very different rules.
Right.
So I think every time you raced at World Cup, it was under Coyote stock rules.
Well, I was racing it for way years before that. I did the push rod car a couple of times in all motor.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. Then I had a supercharged little LX that I did brackets with when they used to run brackets. One year that I didn't have a heads-up car. Yeah. So I was always in that. I always liked that all-motor class.
Yeah.
And the Joker, the first year I won the Joker, it was a Corvette that just beat everybody.
Right.
427 Corvette, built motor. Nobody had. He went through the whole NMRA field. Mm-hmm. But it was a fun race. Right. It's a 5-day race.
Right.
And it's a great facility. It's just awesome when you pull out and there's like literally 30,000 people in the stands.
That's one of the things I still haven't checked off is racing that race for myself. Mm-hmm. I've been there with you. Mm-hmm. Before that, I went there with Gifford. We ran his
I remember that
car and all motor. That was back before you had to pre-qualify for that race.
Yeah.
And there was 86 cars all motor. What a fucking nightmare.
When I had that supercharged little LX that was running brackets, I was in my motorhome at like 12:15 at night, snuggled in, bracket 2 to the lanes. Like, are you serious? Are you shitting me?
Yeah, it's probably like,
get dressed, go to the lanes.
38 degrees outside.
It was horrible. It was freezing. I couldn't see out the window. Like, these guys are nuts.
Yeah. So you've won one?
Yeah, I won in 16. I won the race. I qualified, I think, 3rd or 4th.
Yep.
Out of a 29, 30 car field.
Yeah.
Which was really good. I was really happy with that.
Yeah, but you've also runner up in that class.
The year after. I won. I ran faster. I got treed.
Yep. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I saw that.
That's the truth.
Because
that was a whole internet thing of like Ellis versus Coyote, and the Ellis guys were like, "Yeah, but we won." And he was like, "Yeah, but he was faster. He just sucks driving."
Yeah, they have all those results up from all the years, and I was going through them to kind of refresh my memory, and I'm looking through it. I'm like, "Oh, runner up," and I looked at 145. I was like, "Ouch!"
It was 1 in the morning.
I know.
And I was right behind Haley James when she got to the whole shit fit with the burn down.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And they were there for like 20 minutes, and then she decided like a 50-point K turn. Not that it was her fault.
Right.
It was 1 in the morning. I'm old.
Yeah.
I was tired. The lights sucked, and no excuses. But it was sucked because it was, at that race, it's such a huge race that runner up would be like, oh my God, I did great. But I won it the year before.
Right, exactly.
So I was like, oh, bummer.
Yeah,
man.
it's a little letdown.
I suck.
And then, from there, you kept pushing the car, whether it was at World Cup or not.
Oh, yeah.
And you let's back up a little bit. You were the first Coyote NA, like, what was it, 980?
And
Like,
everything else.
Pretty much every.
I skipped 960s. I never went 960s.
Yep. And then you still currently hold the record, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, at a 9.0.
Yeah.
So that leads us into, well, let's talk about how we got to that 9.0. You want to talk about that?
Sure.
Yeah. I think that stuff is a little bit more talked about now, so we can talk about it.
Sure.
So, a lot of people don't understand out there, and why there's fuel rules in most of racing, is because there's lots of fuel out there that could give you an advantage.
Sure.
So, up until that point, we were running
E85.
or MS 109.
We went from we did MS 109 first.
Yep.
Then we went to E85.
Yeah. And a lot of that had to do with, fuel system limitations.
Yes.
Also why
Yep.
we picked certain fuels. M5 would have been a better choice in some of these spots, but we didn't have enough fuel system. And at that time, I personally wasn't messing as much with M5. If I had been, I probably would have mailed you a fuel pump and fuel injectors for that race. But, hindsight's 2020. So I was like, we don't need the M5, but you do need the M5. But there's another level above that. So how did we get to that point? I have my own story, but I want to hear
just from the Honda guys. The Honda guys just telling me, "Hey, man, you got to up your fuel game."
Yeah, but how? They kicked our ass.
Well, that year they went high 8s.
Yeah, my memory of it was, and that was, sometimes I was remote tuning for you, but that year I was there at the race with you, and it was like, some of them were blowing up every other pass.
But they brought 20 motors with them.
But they were running like high 8s.
Yeah.
And then I remember we're getting, you did okay that year, but we were outgunned because of the nitro. But we were getting, made it a few rounds and we were in the lanes, and there was a guy, and the guy was like really happy to see you. He knew who you were, and he only spoke Spanish, I believe, because I couldn't talk to him. But I think I remember I was like, Go ask them. Go ask them.
You did. Yeah.
Find out exactly what they're using, how they do it, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So, what we're talking about is nitromethane, and people are doing that a lot more. I was just telling you on the way here that, we've got bones. I mean, I guess your engine was stock too, but street cars, like 100%,
right.
Legit 2020 Mustang guy putting nitro in his stock fuel tank. So it's gotten pretty crazy, and you can pick up some pretty huge gains there. So now you're at the 9.0 and we're using a nitro mix.
Right.
And your car is pretty light, but there's other people that have gotten cars that light. So now let's fast forward to, the current day. You've decided you really just want to go all out, like you hold the overall fastest Coyote, anything, all motor, doesn't matter which version of which, right. Anything. So where are we at today? Like, what's your newest project that you're getting ready to debut?
All right. About, let's say 3 years ago, I saw Mike Washington. He ran an 840 with his Coyote, and I was like, wow, that's badass. Props to him. That's badass. And I've always been an NA guy, because I go, well, I could build a Whipple car and run 7s, but I'm like, everybody's doing that. Not taking away from them. That's impressive. I didn't want to go 7s. I'm too old to run 7s. So I go, you know what?
You better change your mind, because
I know
we're doing that.
I know.
Anyway, go ahead.
I know. Yeah, I came around. So I'm like, I want to build a really badass NA Coyote. What would happen if somebody would build just a all out, no rules NA Coyote? So I reached out to Chris Smith, my pushrod builder, because he builds Formula One cars. He builds Indy cars, So I was like, hey, Chris, how do you feel about building anybody that build me a badass Coyote? And he goes, yeah, I know a guy. I go, okay, you want to give it a shot? He goes, what are the rules? I said, no rules. He goes, really? I go, yeah. So
that must get him excited. I'm sure that gets every engine builder excited.
Yeah. And he said, because every year, everything he built me with a factory stock cars were all, well, you got this spring, you got this valve, this chamber on the cylinder head, this flat piston. So I was like, no rules, all balls out. And he's like, okay, cool. This is 3 years ago. I was still, running the Joker car.
And you still got the Joker. And
I'm still doing Coyote stock, and I'm still doing the World Cup and the import stuff and all that stuff. So as he's building it, I mean, he got some great companies to jump on board when he told them what he was doing. He got Carrillo, Molly, Howell Fabrications, Total Seal. Like, he showed me the emails. He's like, I sent this to Carrillo because he was building cars for the business. And then they're like, oh, is this a customer car? He's like, actually, it's a personal project of mine. He's like, oh, can you put a sticker on the car? This is so cool. I got MMR involved. Just a bunch of companies that wanted a part of this.
Right.
So as he's building it, he's telling me, we're not putting this motor in the Joker, right? I go, why? He goes, yeah, car sucks. He goes, you need a better car. There's going to be too much power for that chassis. And he's right. That thing was all zip tied together and it was old already,
Right.
So for like a year and a half, I was looking for a car. And all you find was like a 3/4 done project. And then I speak to chassis guys, which gave me really good deals, but they're like, well, it's going to take 18 months to redo your whole car over. And I know chassis guy, 18 months means 3 years.
Right.
So I just started looking and I'm like, you know what? I'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And he finished the motor. He did the motor. It took,
Right. Took a while.
It took a while because he's like, I'm not going to finish it till you get a car.
Yeah. Well, this is a good spot to make a little bit of a tangent. And what happened to the Joker?
Okay.
Like, obviously, you weren't planning on using that car, but then you got to the point of
I have to.
you
I have to buy a car.
You have to buy another
right.
car.
So we went to that No Prep Kings in Maple Grove. I think it was in May of 19 or 20 maybe. I don't remember what year it was. A year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Maybe 21. I don't know. So we go to No Prep Kings. It's raining all day. And I'm like, we're running with small tire. Now we get to the lanes. Pretty much, I'm the only NA guy. I'm the only stick guy. All these other cars are twin turbo LSs, 500 cubic inch, whatever.
Right.
So I'm like,
what made you decide to go that route?
It was Maple Grove.
Just for
fun. It was
fun.
close.
You were like,
I'm friends with Mike Murillo.
Oh, okay.
I know he was going to be there, and I'm like, oh shit, we'll go hang out. I'll race my car because he hates my car. He hates the paint job. I'm going to park right in front of it just to piss him off. So we go, and it rained all morning, and I was like, I really didn't feel like racing. I was like, man, I really feel like going home, but it's 2.5 hours away. I'm here. So thank God my whole crew showed up. Mike Wilson, his son. Mike, John, that's his son. Joey, Marco. My whole crew showed up, which was good. So then, quick funny story. Every third car was crashing. We were in the lanes. Every third car is crashing, which is not funny.
No.
But, I'm like, so I walked the track, and I'm like, man, this shit really sucks. This really is no prep. This is where I messed up, but it was all, for a reason. So one of the producers or somebody comes up with a clipboard with his headphones, and I go, dude, don't worry about my car. I only got 400 horsepower.
Right.
I'll be out of here in 5-6 seconds. I was, oh, thank you. So this is where I messed up was I'm thinking I was a street racer my whole life. I know how to street race, but I forgot because I've been doing track for 20 years.
Right.
And I'm out of track. So my brain is thinking, you're at a track. Launch it at 6,000 like you do everywhere else.
Right.
And off the get, the car was spinning. I had a new tire I never ran before. I had a new clutch I never ran before. And it was just spinning the whole way down the track. And third gear, I'm like, oh, it's going to the middle. I should lift or should I shift? Shift. Like an idiot.
Right.
Because I didn't have a mirror in the car. I didn't know where the other car was.
Right.
And it launched, hit the wall, went up in the air, landed.
And what, it took a right turn on you?
It just turned right, dude.
Yeah.
And it's funny because at the moment it turned right, I said to myself, I go, so this is what it feels like to crash.
Yeah.
Because I saw your crash.
I've got a lot of experience there.
Yeah. You must have had the same thought or like, oh, shit.
Yeah. When I crashed my GT500 last March, that was the scariest one because I lost control, but I didn't hit the wall instantly. I was out of control thinking, I had a lot of time to think like, I'm fucked. Oh no.
At what point am I fucked?
I got it. And then all of a sudden, boom, I was straight at the wall and I'm like, here it is. You just, right before you hit the wall, you know you're going to hit the wall and you just get this almost like a calmness over you because you're just like,
I was the opposite.
No, really? See,
when I was going to hit the wall the second time, I'm like, am I going to die here?
Well, I guess maybe I'm sadistic or something. I did think I was going to die, but I wasn't like,
you weren't upset about it.
I was just like, Oh, it's been good. You know, like, that's what crossed my
When
mind.
I saw your crash, dude, all I thought I was like, I gotta get airbags in my car.
The airbag saved my life
Yeah.
because I was an idiot.
Yeah.
I didn't have neck protection on, even though I had
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It was sitting in the
It was
passenger
on the
seat.
passenger seat. Yeah.
And yeah, the airbag saved my life,
Yeah.
I think.
I was like, man, I wish I had airbags in my car. Can I put airbags in a Fox body?
Yeah. So, you know, you crashed the car.
So I crashed the car, went to the hospital. I broke 4 vertebrae. I went into AFib because a helmet hit. I didn't have my seatbelt on very tight. But
Yeah.
thank God I did have. It's only 8th mile.
Yeah.
How fast can I be going? Just put the seatbelt on. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Thank God I put the neck collar on. So that hit my chest pretty hard. So I went into AFib. Long story short, they found cancer when they did my x-ray. They're like, well, you got 4 broken vertebrae. And meanwhile, my family had come up from North Carolina. So my sister, God bless her, I love her to death. And she's right. She's like, that's it. 30 years. We're done with this. You know, you can't do this anymore. Every time you go to the track, I'm nervous wreck. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. I'm done. I'm done. You're
I
right.
do remember that. It was a sad day when you said that to
Well,
me.
to me, it was kind of like, you know what? She's right.
Yep.
She's right. I mean, it's, besides now being in pain in the hospital, you know, I got my family worrying about me. And that's it. You know, I had a good run.
And you kind of glossed over the cancer part.
Well, yeah,
You know?
well, that's the thing. The next day, after I decided, now I'm ahead, I'm going to sell Chris's motor.
Right.
Chris Smith, you know, Elan Power Products. I'm going to sell that motor. And the car, I'll see what I do. I don't care about the car. I don't have a car and I don't have a motor. Doctor walks in and he's like, you know, you got all this broken shit, but you got something in your kidney. We got to take it out. I said, take it out. What's the delay? They took it out and it's like, that accident saved your life, son. You had stage 3 cancer.
Yeah, you had no symptoms, right? I mean, I don't know
Nothing.
what symptom you would have for
I
something.
don't know.
I don't
Is
think
it
you'd have a
exhaustion?
symptom.
I'm always tired.
Yeah,
Is it sleepy? I'm always sleepy.
right.
You know, so it's like, is that part of it was just being almost 60 years old and working 13 hours a day.
Right.
So he's like, the accident saved your life. So I looked at my family. I'm like, I guess I'm still racing then.
Like, I can't stop racing now. It saved my life.
And I told him, I got to build a faster car so they do a full body scan next time when I crash. They didn't like that. But so yeah, and then that's 10 days in the hospital. That's in Pennsylvania. It's 2.5 hours. So we had to go, you know, my family brings me home. Now I'm still thinking, I go, okay, great. I might race again, but I still don't have a car.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, no lie, I get on Facebook. First thing I do when I get home, I get on Facebook, open it up. First thing that pops up is Frank Hoffman's LX. And I'm like, no way. For sale. I'm like,
And
no.
this was what, 10.5 NA
NA 10.5 car. Yeah,
deal.
yeah. He had an LS in it, then he had a 347 Ford in it. But I know the car. The car is like a work of art.
Yeah, like, and what would he race with that? Like NMCA all motor, and then the Michigan had their own NA 10.5 deal
I
too.
don't know. I know he ran NFCA in it.
Yeah, and he
NA 10.5
probably ran
in
the
it.
Michigan one too.
Probably.
Yep,
Probably.
Yep.
He's one of those Michigan fags. So I open it up, dude, and there's that car right there. And I'm like, no way. No. This is the first thing I see when I get out of the hospital.
Yeah.
I go, let me text him. Maybe it's an old ad, an old post. I go, hey, Frank, you know, you got the car for sale? He's like, I do. I want you to have it, and I'll deliver it to Jersey for you. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. So the next text was to my engine builder. Hey, Chris, you said you weren't going to finish the motor? Here's the car. It's a 750 certified car. She's like, holy shit. I go, finish the motor. So we're back in business. It took me 5 months to tell my family I bought a car.
I remember when you called me about that because, you know, obviously I was happy that you were okay and, you know, the cancer thing worked out. But I was a little, it sucked because, you know, we've been working together forever. And then at that point you're telling me you're not racing anymore. And then I remember you calling me like, I got some news. I got on Facebook and there was a car for sale. So I got to buy it. I was like, oh, whatever.
It's getting delivered.
Yeah.
It's even getting delivered.
You're like, it's just, you know, it's destiny. So I just got to do it that way.
God,
So-
at that point, I said, God wants me to race.
Yep.
So I can't let down God. You know, that's wrong.
Yep.
You do that, you're letting you're raising up Satan.
You know, and this is still a few years ago, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now, fast forward to today, the car, the engine's done, it's together. You're finishing it up right now,
Yep.
and it's absolutely awesome. What transmission is in that thing?
It's a G-Force GF 2000, clutchless V-Gate 5-speed.
Right.
So it's a pro stock trans.
So basically, a pro stock trans, and people
Yep.
don't know what V-Gate is. If you've ever seen a pro stock, it's just forward, back, forward.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yep.
5.
Yeah, so it's not an H pattern, but it's still a manual. It is a clutchless trans.
Right.
But, you know, you're not making any bones about it. You're not trying to pretend that it's some street car, especially with the hood you're putting on it. I'm going to keep giving you shit about that. I like it, actually. I think, it, you know, because you got...
It works, though. It's functional.
And it matches the rest of the car. It matches the trans... You know, the whole project is... If you had like a H pattern and you had that hood on it, I'd be like, this doesn't work. But, you know, it's a race car, right?
It's a race car.
I mean, theoretically, you could probably take it to McDonald's to prove a point online. No.
Dude, I put pump gas in it 2 days ago to redo the idle tune.
Yep.
I gave my engine builder like a 30-paragraph text. The timing's at here. We did this. We did that. All he wrote back was in giant letters, pump gas.
Get that shit out of my engine.
Don't you ever put pump gas in that again. I go, just for idle. He goes, I don't give a shit. I was like, okay, no, not a street car, not a street car. Take that shit out right away. Put some real gas in it.
And that has Holly on it?
It has a Holley EFI Dominator.
Nice.
With the big screen, the big giant old blind guy screen on it. And
right now you're just running it. You know, the engine tune was like what on Q16?
Yes. Mike Curcio and out of MCRP, he has the engine dyno. So my engine builder didn't dyno it because he was just happy to get that thing out of his shop. He said, just get this thing out of here. So,
and I thought one of the interesting things, and Mike's part of it, so I want to make sure you hit on that, is, you know, you went, after you got it from him, you went through a couple early, fairly quick changes, mostly with intake manifold, right?
Well, yeah. It was my idea, basically. The first intake that Chris made, and the guys over at the shop, Jonathan on Cloud, sorry, that's too many people. They made a 6 throttle body sheet metal intake with long runners on it. But the injectors were on top. Because that was my idea. I go, you know what? The injectors and the runners kind of like is an obstruction. Can we put them on top like Formula One cars do?
Right.
Chris is like, yeah, we could do that. So he made it great. The only problem is with the Holley, and I guess, I don't know, you know more about these stuff that I do, is when you turn the key on, it kind of floods the intake with gas.
Yep.
Unless you have 16 injectors, which then you could just shut off 8. And so by the third pull, before we even got a pull, to be honest with you, we were just like warming it up and getting it running, and the intake exploded on the dyno.
Because you had fuel pooled in the intake.
Yeah. When we shut the fire off, there was still fuel pooled in the intake.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, okay, that's not going to work. So then Mike did a couple of intakes using still the bottom one. He got the Holley high ram. We modified that one, and that one picked up power because we got, you know, it did good. But then Mike took the original intake and put those, and then I found those 2 4 throttle bodies that I had. I knew I had them somewhere, but they were lost. I go, hey, Mike, I got these. And that,
when you say that, it's like, it looks like a carburetor, but it's
right. It's a 4150 throttle bodies, which is like a dual
and
dual quads, right?
Yeah.
But it's fuel injection, but it looks like carburetors,
right?
And that picked up a shitload of power. Yeah. So we were happy with the results. You know, we were very happy with the dyno results, and the rest has been on me. Just put the car together, which is.
It sounds like it's getting pretty close now. Is it mostly going to be like a fun car, or like is there actually some classes you can race that in, you think? Have you really even considered it?
I have. I looked around. I mean, I built it just for fun.
Right.
I built it just to swing my dick like I did in World Cup in 16. You know, I was going to come here and just swing my dick and say, oh, I'm the fastest Coyote, and you know, and I won the race, which is kind of okay. That's cool. It's even better. So I just built it just for fun, just because I want to see what an all-out NA Coyote can do.
Yeah.
You know, no rules, because I mean, Mike did great with his, but he had rules. You know, Kevin McMullen's doing his, he's got rules. You know, there's a bunch of guys building NA Coyotes out there right now. They're all coming out of the woodwork and hitting me up, and I'm like, oh, another one. Cool, man, have our own class soon. You know, but it could run Ultra Street. But no, those guys are running mid-4s.
Right.
You know, if this thing goes a low 5, I'll be happy.
I think one thing that would be cool, especially if we start experimenting with different fuels in it once you get the car down the track, is maybe do some grudge racing with it, you know, like call out some other NA cars that are like,
I thought about that
should be
right.
Like, you know, on paper, it's like a 10.5 Outlaw car, right? They're running, I'm hoping we can get it to those ETs, you know, where they wouldn't expect you to,
right,
with a Coyote,
right.
So, but in a grudge format,
Right.
You know, would be pretty cool.
No, I thought about that. As long as it's prepped.
Yeah, full prep, no street stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to run 30-inch front struts and, I just, clutchless on no prep. I couldn't
imagine.
Mentally, I would probably be able to do it.
Right.
I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm too old for that shit. I'm too old to steer a car down the track,
Yeah.
Which is fine. Don't get me wrong. I was a younger guy. I'd be all over it, but that's a young man sport. But, and now they made it legal for NMCA NA 10.5. Now, that's a badass class.
The transmission's legal for that, you said?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
The whole car is.
Oh, wow.
The engine, they allowed finally a modular in there because they weren't allowed modulars.
Right.
One cam per engine, 2 valves per cylinder, that's it.
Gotcha.
So Kevin McMullen petitioned NMCA for the Coyotes, and they said, sure.
Right.
But they put too much weight on us. It's 2650.
Yeah.
Now, I got a 338 cubic inch motor. You got guys that were 500 cubic inch motors.
Right.
And they're running high sevens. So, they're like, oh, we'll just bring the car out and, once we see you can't compete, we'll drop the weight on it. I go, yeah, but that's an expensive motor to beat the shit out of just to prove a point that I can't compete.
Yeah, how about throwing me a bone,
Right. But but those guys are big crybabies, though. Those guys are really bad. I thought the other classes were bad. Those guys are really crybabies.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, whatever, but I won't go.
Yeah.
I just won't go. I'll have fun with the car.
Right.
And if I feel like going to one race, I'll go and just hang out,
yeah.
And race the car. But I'm not going to beat the shit out of it just to get my ass handed to me. But the whole grudge thing, that's because, there's a whole big thing now with, like Brett, what he ran. Yeah. And the LS guys are like, oh, well, we got this guy that runs this car. Yeah, but he doesn't drive it 30 miles.
Yeah.
He doesn't win sick week. He doesn't do shit with it. He's a race car. So I'm thinking about doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
We got something in the works with Godzilla.
Okay.
Me and Dan Rintz are going to probably match race each other with his NA Godzilla against my NA Coyote.
Nice.
The two top of the heap Ford motors.
I love those types of, it's not even like
stick.
It's not even like
Fox bodies
related to a race. It's just like two cars. Like you mentioned Brett. I think the video just came out a couple of days ago. Cletus is building a whole new car, and I believe it's probably because of Brett.
Of course,
because the mullet isn't quite there. Now he's going a route I wish he wasn't going because he's
Cletus.
Yeah, the new car.
Okay.
He's building like it's a chassis car. Like not starting with it's not a VIN. It's probably not going to be a drag and drive car. It's like he's trying to go fives with it. And it's at least going to be a Camaro, which is kind of cool.
Right.
Although it's 69 Camaro, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, at that point,
another one.
There's a lot of exactly. So I was a little let down that he was doing it. If you're going to do a Camaro, I don't really necessarily like the newer style Camaros, but it would just be a little cooler to see the new Camaro versus Brett in his car, which, and just like build that up. But I guess at this point, he's got the budget. He's like, I don't care what you think. I am building the baddest car I could possibly come up with. So it'll still be cool to see, but
but it's a two car. It's a race car.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like
at least he's not trying to hide it. I mean, he said said it right in the video. He's like, we're not starting with a car.
Right.
I got this quarter panel here and a bunch of tube over there, and we're just gonna put it together.
See this roof? This Camaro.
He's making a big deal about it being all steel. It's like, who cares at that point? It's not even a real car, but I still think it'll be cool to see. What kind of time are we going to see that car go down the track this year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right now, all I'm waiting for is suspension. So that's
you said
Yancey and Ron Galbraith over at Afterworks and Viscius. They should be getting my struts in a couple of days to redo them and tell me what I need as far as springs.
Because
we're going to do the alignment
stuff off the Joker that got damaged. So they're going to fix all that stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
So hopefully by June it should be out.
Yeah.
Hopefully by June. I was hoping May.
At least you're timing it around, good weather and stuff.
Exactly. Just the perfect weather. But everybody's like, oh, tell me when you're going to go racing. I want to go watch the car. I go, no, the first 3 times are going to be a shit show.
Yeah, exactly.
Things going to leak. The suspension's wrong.
Clutch. Adjusting clutch.
Oh, God, don't even remind me of that.
Yeah.
It's a fully adjustable dual 7-inch, like I had literally 50 times I put that clutch on the car just to measure, make sure that I was on the money.
Yeah. People don't understand how much of a pain that could be. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people, nowadays, almost nobody's messing with clutch cars like outlaw
Right,
style,
right.
like 5-second stuff. But I remember back in the day when I was first getting into this, I had some people like the Pro 5.0 days, and they were trying to do clutches, and it's like they make one pass out of 10.
Yeah.
Like it would even make a pass.
Yeah.
And nowadays, everything's figured out for the most part. You need this transmission with this torque converter and this setup, and boom. And that's cool and all, because obviously at the end of the day, just seeing new barriers broken overall, period, not based on what it is, just like Brett, streetcar.
Yeah.
You could argue what a streetcar is, but people ask my opinion on that. And if I was going to evaluate Brett's car just sitting there looking at it, I would say I don't really think that's a street car. But how could I possibly say that when he drives at 1,000 miles
Exactly.
and wins over any other? Like it's like he didn't even just win his class; he won the whole damn thing over a pro mod. What was even funnier was, a lot of people were like, well, the pro mod had issues. It's like, okay, well, let's go look at their dyno videos, right?
The pro mod had issues.
Yeah, well, no, but like Jeff Lutz put down 3,000 on the dyno, and Brett put down 2,950 or something. I'm like, they're making it. They're not. It's not even like, oh well, he's got the combo right, and he's like the underdog. It's like he's making the same power that Big Block is with 302 or whatever. Maybe it's a little bigger. I don't know. I don't think it is.
Yeah, how much? You can't make it that big anyway.
No, exactly. So, the where the streetcar game has reached is amazing, but at the same time, it almost makes stuff like what you're doing cooler, right? Because at a certain point, the fastest of the fast is so far out there,
right,
and so ridiculous, and almost deflates a lot of people.
Well, it's like you said before with the 24 Mustangs.
Right.
It's kind of going back to like when we used to turn distributors and put like homemade cold air intakes.
Yeah.
That's the 24 Mustang now.
Yeah.
It's kind of going backwards. Is the future, so it's kind of more fun again because you have to figure out exactly what air pressure and what tire height and all that crap.
Yeah, and then even like playing with like the Whipple cars, they're all like, I'm running E30, right? Because they can't tune for E85. They can't change fuel system. So I'm running E30. Oh, I'm running half 103, MS 103, half 93, and I'm running this, and I'm running that, and I'm running this pulley. And like, the tune's not set up for that pulley, but like, they don't have a choice, so they're just doing it. And, a couple guys went 970s already with them. They're tuned by Whipple, but not and no shade at Whipple. I was very impressed with the one that I drove. It drove great, but I wouldn't even send you down the track with an NA 970 car without looking at logs and changing something. And they're out there with like a stock engine with
no warranty. Fuck it.
They're running like, I don't want to reveal too much, but they're running a decent amount of boost on like a can tune, and they're just sending it, and
it's working.
The worst thing that's happened, I think, is one of them blew a catalytic converter out of the tailpipe.
Cats, I love it.
You saw it. It was in the video. I was like, huh, did it just blow up? And I'm like, but it was the first 9-second one.
Wow.
And I hit Dustin up, and I was like, haven't seen anybody actually question that video, but there's a big, huge white thing coming out of the, that catalytic converter, like that one. But these are people that are just like I said, they're running a pulley that's not really meant to be run. They're running it in situations.
They're pushing it.
Yeah. And but my point is here you are, and you expect the engine to blow. It's like, nope. Just blew out the catalytic converter, and it's you got these cars that are full weight going 9 seconds with just like an off-the-shelf kit. It's just absolutely insane. So let's talk a little bit about what type of stuff you like to do outside of cars. I know
sleep and eat.
I know that. But you do music, like you play guitar. It may not be like you're like pro level, but. I would see you play guitar at the track, and like you go out and play some.
Those are my drinking days.
Little gigs. Is that kind of over now? Is that mostly tied to partying lifestyle, or you just?
It helped. I mean, I'll be driving home and I'll hear a song on the radio, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta play that song. I gotta learn it tonight.
Right.
Then I get home and I'm like, oh man, I gotta make dinner. Oh man, I want to lay down. Like, I'll learn that song tomorrow, and then I forget. You know, I'll do it. I did it a few weeks ago where I took like a whole week and just played every night. Instead of eating, I played just because it's healthier. And I learned a couple of songs. And the cleaning lady came over, I had to put the guitar away, and I put it away, and I haven't picked it up again. Yeah. But I love doing it. Like I said, I'll be driving home, and I'll hear a song, and I'm like, man, I really should learn that song. That's a really badass song. Yeah. And then
I think it's important to have those kind of like totally unrelated hobbies. Yeah. Because it kind of clears your mind. Like, if all you do is focus on one thing, you actually sometimes it's detriment to you progressing there because you got to like step away from it. Yeah. And I don't know how your mind is, but I can't just step away from something unless I have something to step into. You know what I mean? Like in this case, you took a week off from a lot of other things and just mess with the guitar. Maybe it helps you clear your head. Whereas you might have been like,
well, I still went to work.
Yeah, no, I know.
It's after work, you know?
Right. But instead of messing with the car nonstop for that week, you know, you're doing that. And it's like a break. It's, it's something to fill the time when you're not doing what you're mostly obsessed with, which is cars for most of us. You know, for me, it's video. That's why I do this stuff. I enjoy doing it. You know, and it's still
it's a different challenge. It's another challenge.
Yep.
But it's not going to kill you if it fails.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, I'll keep working on it later.
Yep. You know, and it's not like live or die. You're not like, if I don't play the guitar today,
I can't pay my rent. Right.
Or like, I'm so depressed because I can't play my guitar. Right. It's just, you know, it's
a different, yeah, it's a break.
Yeah, because, you know, those sorts of things have taught me, you know, back when we were racing NMRA all the time together, I was way overboard with it mentally. You know, like I would go to a race and I would expect to win, especially when me and Gifford were hitting on all cylinders and doing really well. It'd be like, I never like hardly enjoyed wins because I expected to win. Right. And then when I didn't, it was more just like, what did I do wrong? Right. You know, instead of like, well, just didn't win today. Yep. You know, so doing things outside that competitive nature, it kind of helps you keep a balance.
Well, you got better when you hung out with me a couple of times. Yeah. Like, we didn't win, but man, I feel good. So, I get it, Carlos. I get it. You didn't win in 10 years, but you didn't care.
So, you know, do you see yourself doing much traveling with this new car? You know, you said a lot of the reason that, you know, you took some time off in the last 5 years were because work and all those sorts of things and running the business. But, you know, are you going to try to take some more time to get back into that, whether it's competitive racing or just traveling around? Do you see yourself doing that?
With the new build, it's probably going to be more selective, you know, where I'm just not going to try. I'm not going to run a circuit. Right. You know, it's kind of like, oh, well, look, this is a really cool race in Ohio. You know, it's a stick race, and why not go there? You know what I mean? Or it's a really cool, South Carolina has a really cool race. Yeah. Let me go there.
Or like I said, you know, we talked about setting up grudge races. Maybe those will happen at a race, but you're not racing a class at that race. It's more like I'm meeting Dan there, and we're going to run the Godzilla versus Coyote as like a feature grudge.
We're going to hype it up. We're going to, you know, bring it up because it's going to be a fun race. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's going to be cool. It's going to be more setup things. I'm not going to show up and say, like, I got to get the car running first. Right. Get it fast second. And once it's got a reputation again, because I still got to get it wrapped. Don't forget, it's going to get wrapped. Yep. I won't tell you what.
Joker 2.0.
2.0.
So you're going, we don't want to reveal anything if you don't want to, but is it going to be the same basic concept?
Same but different.
Same, yeah. It's going to, people are going to know that's the Joker 2.0.
Yeah, they're going to know it is. Yeah. I'm stuck with that diamond. It's just different, but it's going to be close to it, but you'll know the difference. But it's going to be more like call out, you know, like I'm going to challenge every LS under 400 cubic inches. Right. You know, and actually aspirate it. Because then you get, oh, I got a 560 LS motor on a race. No, you're going to whip my ass, asshole. I'm a 338.
Yeah. And that's how I would love, I'm glad you're saying that because that's how I want to see it. Right. Like, you know, and it doesn't have to be, not no prep, but like grudge, no time, type, you know, no time is still prepped, but no time stuff where it's just like, I'm not even sure what that car runs, but that thing is a bad motherfucker, you know, and that I think that's like one of the coolest things you could do with that car.
Call out all the Hemi guys, call out the Chevy guys. You know what I mean? Let's go have fun with this car. That's what it's built for. You know what I mean?
Think any gambling will be involved?
Oh, hell yeah.
You know?
Hell yeah. In Mexico.
Yeah, exactly.
Hell yeah, bro. No, it's like I said, I got a plan, sort of. It could always change.
Right.
But first thing is get it running, get it down the track, see if it's fast, because the driver could suck. And then go from there and then start being an asshole again and start calling people out. That's why I took off that year from NMRA when I went back to Maple Grove.
Yep.
I was having so much fun with the outlaw stuff because that's what happened every year. Every year NMRA finishes, I get the car ready for World Cup. Take the weight out, take the exhaust off, take the alternator off, put a water pump on, put some fuel, put a tune, and it was so much fun. And then come March, it's kind of like, I got to put 400 pounds back in the car. I got to put the exhaust back. I got to take this tune out. I got to run C10 again. It's kind of like so depressing.
Yeah.
That I just stayed, you know what? I'm leaving it like this. I'm going to go have fun. That's why we're dynoing it. And I learned so much from the outlaw stuff that when I went back to Coyote stock, I pretty much like, I got you guys. I'm pretty good.
And there's a lot of guys that, besides yourself, you were one of the more successful outlaw Coyote racers, but there's a lot of guys that do it. You know, like World Cup would have 4 or 5, 6 Coyotes in there, and then you'd have.
Well, the rules change now. See, that's when the Hondas messed up with the fuel. Then Jason Miller wanted to slow down the class, which is understandable,
right?
To like mid to semi low 9s. Well, the Gen 3s can do that.
Yep.
You know, they could do that right now.
Right.
So he kind of made the rules. It's now just strictly a crossover class. Well, last year, before the year before I crashed, I was going to run it. Then he said no tunes allowed. You got to run the Ford tune. I was like,
it was only Coyote stock crossover.
Yeah,
yeah.
But you had to run the Ford tune.
Gotcha.
C10.
That's right. Even before, when it was a Coyote stock crossover,
you still had to run.
You could still tune it
before you could tune it, which is the fun of it. You know, taking the rev limiter out of it, let's buzz it, see what happens. But then he changed the rules to keep it more reserved, and it was no tune allowed. C10, you could take 200 pounds out of the car.
Yeah, I'm
like, well, that's gay. You know what I mean? Like, I want to tune it. I want to play with the tune. That's what it's pretty much Coyote stock light.
Right, exactly.
Because you got the same tune and the same fuel.
Yeah.
So, you know, I understand his point. He understood my point. I just want to go fast.
Yep.
But so I just left the car in that trim and just started doing like a bunch of other stuff. I did a 10-0 index for a Wally, running 950s.
So, you know, obviously like a normal Coyote stock race nowadays, you still get 14, 16, 17 cars.
Oh, yeah.
But I did have noticed that, and maybe it's just like a little bit of a lull, but the outlaw stuff kind of faded a little bit. Not necessarily World Cup, but like Mod Nats, I believe, still had like outlaw. And part of the issues there are probably scheduling with World Cup being close to Mod Nats. But do you see there being a possibility? You know, somebody has to come up with the idea or a way or drive that. I would like to see a lot more of that outlaw style Coyote NA racing. Do you think there's room for that? And like how?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I think Derek Perez, Paul Dishroon, Kevin McMullen, myself, Washington's out there. Matt Williams has an NA Coyote. Jay Meisner in Canada. These are all NA, fast NA. Most of the guys are still building them.
Right.
But they reach out to me. They say, hey, those throttle bodies make a difference. You know, I want that intake. I want to run this intake. I'm like, cool, try it. See what happens. You know, so there's going to be a lot of NA Coyotes coming out.
Yeah. And it doesn't even have to be just Coyote. It could be Godzilla. But I would like to see like a late model, not necessarily car, but engine. Outlaw, like, you know, like you have 10.5 NA that goes 790s. I would like to see the same class with Coyotes, Godzillas.
Oh no, I agree.
LSs.
That'd be great.
You know, and obviously with Coyote stock, I was a fan of there being like a real simple recipe, but I don't think that's possible when you're talking about that. So I would want to see you race Mike Washington. Now he's got, you know, H pattern in that car, at least the last time he ran it. No,
it's a GF5R.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But when he ran the 840s, was that in there?
I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say either way. I think so, but I could be
What's
wrong.
Dan putting in the
a GF5R?
Okay.
A V8.
Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong then. I was going to say.
Well, that's the next level.
Yeah.
That's the next level.
And then all of a sudden now, that's a good example because what I was getting at was you were going to be the only guy there with that type of transmission. And then, we have to, it gets a little difficult to fabricate the rules. So you race versus an H pattern car and it's somewhat fair. But the flip side of it is now if there's 3 or 4 cars with GF5Rs or the Liberty equivalent, that's the G-Force, right? The G5R?
Yes. It's a 5-speed. It's a V-Gate 5-speed. It's just like mine.
It's pretty much the same as like what a Liberty would be in Pro Stock.
Well, the Liberty is equal to the GF2000.
Oh, okay.
The equalizer.
Okay.
Whatever, Liberator, whatever the hell it's called, that's the same as the GF2000.
Okay.
So it's the rails are on top and it's a Pro Stock trans.
And what's the difference between that and the GF5R?
GF5R, I think they're supposed to be more streetable.
Okay.
Because it's not technically a clutchless transmission, but it
is. But you use it that way,
right? Like a G101A is not a clutchless transmission.
You just do it that way.
It's just the way it's cut, the gears. So they could do that. So it's pretty much the same. It's a lighter trans than the GF2000. Obviously, the GF2000 holds more power. It's for a Pro Stocker.
Okay, so that's actually a key point. There is the GF5R might actually be an advantage in your car because it's lighter. You think?
Yeah, but Leonard said, no, you're running this. And I said, okay.
Okay.
Whatever you say, Leonard.
Right.
You know more about this than I do. And he's like, no, you're running this. You're running this. This is what you want to run. I mean, that's just a true clutchless.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody that's ran it's told me, dude, you're going to love it. You're going to love that thing. And compared to the other ones, you're going to love that thing when you shift it because it's just kind of like, oh, wow, it kind of wants to do it.
Yeah, one thing that I would like to do, I have a million projects that like dream projects, everything from like, I still have this outlier dream of getting an old mail truck and like putting like a shortened rear end under it, but making it look like a mail truck and repaint it so it like looks like a mail truck, but it's called hauling the mail or something like that. Okay. And just go drive around at night and go to like street races and just like beat people with like a mail truck. Retarded, right?
No, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I don't even know why I brought that up. But I just there's a bunch of different ways to go about it. But one combo I think would be cool, not NA wise, but like all out, is that type of transmission behind a torque converter. With the Bruno type drive. Then at that point,
well, they have that in NA 10.5.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
and I to me, like that's the ultimate combo, right? Because like you can make the argument of auto versus stick, but that takes the best of both worlds, right? Yeah. Like you've got a converter, so you're not tuning a clutch,
right?
But you have no issues of clutches in the tranny itself,
right?
It's just it's all gear engagement.
Yeah, that's badass.
Yeah,
maybe later on, who knows?
Yeah, who knows, man? You may get the bug. You say you don't want to do a power adder, but maybe you go 780s with the NA one and be like, man, that was crazy, but like I like it. I want to go faster.
Yeah, I know, but I'm like, you know what? NA guys are the guys that like will have sex with like a 20-year-old condom. You know what I mean? It's like we're going to be safe, but we want to live a little dangerously. Like if it breaks inside, oh well, I might get a disease, but I might not. But I'm getting laid. Who cares? That's what NA guys are, though. You know what I mean? We're retarded that way. It's like we could go 2 seconds faster, a lot easier.
Yeah.
But let's just really be assholes and fucking do this really difficult.
Yeah, and the cool thing I've noticed in from my perspective with street cars is you would think that the NA stuff would just completely die, right? Because you could take a bone stock Mustang and literally put an off-the-shelf Whipple, an off-the-shelf Hellion, and it perform well, and you don't have all the issues you might have had 10 or 15 years ago with a power adder kit, that caught, things weren't engineered as well. Now everything's engineered so well that you can go fast, but there's still people pushing the NA side of things. And, a lot of people watching this podcast may not realize it, but I was like an anti-power adder guy when I first got into this. I'm like,
well, you ran Pure Street.
Yeah. I mean, that was my thing. And, some of that's influenced by the people around you. And it was like, oh, well, boost is easy. And like NA is like, it's where the men play, that kind of thing.
The retarded, man.
Yeah, exactly. But, I do love it. And, one thing that we've been doing a lot of lately is the nitro tuning and bone stock engines. You know, we've got guys going mid to low nines, and now, you know, back when you were running it and all those times, like nobody was really talking about it publicly because we were trying to keep it a secret, of course, not necessarily because we were cheating.
Let me cut you off a second. Yeah. The funny thing is, the Honda guys were telling me about that for 5 years already. Yeah. Before I ran it, they've been telling me for 5 years, dude, you got to try M5. Dude, you got to try M1, M5. Yeah. And I'm like, nah. You guys don't know what the hell you're talking about. Yeah. So I knew about it for 5 years. I was just an idiot and stubborn. So
well, but that's a good example as to like necessity breeds innovation. Right. Like a good example is, you know, the Honda guy to compete has to do that. Right. Where we don't have to do that. Like I talked to somebody big in the super world when I was talking about the nitro stuff, and I'm like, yeah, we mess with the NA. He's like, why don't you put it in the boosted cars? I'm like, well, we don't need it. You know, like we don't need it. We're making more power than we can handle at this point. Right. But then these other guys with like lesser combination, not that a super is lesser combination. Obviously you could do really good stuff with the 2JZ and all that. But they were running it in their particular car. And, you know, it's just like, sometimes when you have the easy route, it's also the less innovative route because you don't have to innovate. Right. I mean, totally weird example was I was in Dominican Republic tuning cars. Like I went there and all the little things that they were doing got my attention because it was born out of necessity, right? Yep. Like the dyno controller, right? Like I break my dyno controller, boop, throw it out. Get a new one. It'll be here tomorrow, right? They're in Dominican Republic. Everything's 10 times more expensive to get it over there. So like I'm using their dyno controller and it's got all these like resistors and shit. It looked like a science experiment and it worked perfectly.
Oh, Radio Shack experiment.
And I'm like, what is this? Like, oh, we had to fix that like 5 or 6 times. But they're over there, you know, with like electronics and doing circuit boards. And I'm like, I've been a dyno guy for 15 years and I have no idea what they have going on here because I would just throw that shit out and get a new one. But that, like, to me, that's impressive because they're digging in places that I don't even consider digging into because they have to. And that same thing happens on platforms that are, you know, a little handicapped, I guess I would say. Right. But then, you know, Honda's, I mean, I think Honda is one of the coolest stories, honestly, in performance, just because, you know, it's like they continue to innovate and like do things with things where you'd be like, why are you doing that? But then all of a sudden now there's all these all-wheel drive Hondas out there that I'm like,
let's go CRV. Let's take a CRV into a Civic body on it.
Right.
It's genius.
And they're just taking like, it's like, you know, it's not like, oh, well, they've got some billet shit or anything. It's just like taking friggin' shit out of a truck.
CRV.
And I'm like, why haven't we done that with a Mustang? There's gotta be some way we can make one all-wheel drive.
The
In fact, there is one guy though that did it on a YouTube channel, but there's a perfect example. Some guy did it. Like a true all-wheel drive S550. He put like a Toyota diff in the front, like an engineer, hole through the oil pan, all this stuff I've dreamed about. And then here's this guy and he's got like no views on his video. And I'm like, dude, this guy's a genius. But nobody cares because it's just, there's just, the Mustang world is just so, you know, a little bit cookie cutter. You know, there's not those as much innovation there.
Make a video about your mufflers. We got 2 million hits.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a guy with a 4-wheel drive Mustang and like, oh, crickets.
Yeah. Like, I saw another video of these young kids. I don't know if it was like an engineering project or at college or whatever, but they made a V10 modular.
I saw that.
Did you see that shit?
Yeah.
I was like, how come nobody's talking about this?
I was like, what the fuck?
Does it make power? I don't know. But it ran.
Right. It started.
It started.
It ran.
They were running on an engine stand. It wasn't in a car yet when I saw it.
I saw that. I was like,
and they were young. And they were young.
Well, why not?
Yeah. Well, and that kind of stuff just, you know, sometimes it like makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. You know, I'm like, here I am, you know, I've been doing this 20 years and this guy's making an all-wheel drive Mustang. This guy's making a V10 modular.
I don't knock myself that because I noticed they got one thing that we don't: time.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Because that takes a lot of time. And if we had any spare time, you'd be making videos and I'd be playing guitar.
Yep.
And you're not making videos and I'm not playing guitar. Why? Because we have no time.
Yeah. And I think maybe there's a little jealousy involved because I see that shit and I'm like, man, I would love to just have like 6 months to just build something.
I would like to
And
say
that's
how
it.
much you want for it.
Yeah.
I'll buy it from you because you already built it. I don't have time to build it.
Yeah.
I could, but I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But that goes back to what I was saying before when I was poor. I mean, I'm still poor, but when I was like $300 a week, $300 a month rent, I was paying in a basement with full of water and roaches. But I learned how to make my car fast because I couldn't buy. I was beating guys with Paxtons and Vortexes and all this crap with full length headers. I had my stock little headers. I was beating them on the street.
Yeah.
Because I had to. That's all I got. Make the car light, make it fucking suspension travel, and make it work. That's it.
That's a good topic actually to talk about is money. There's a lot of people out there that seem to think, you put enough money into it and you're going to be the fastest guy. And there's some truth to that depending on exactly the details. But in the end, it's not really true, right?
No.
Again, we use Brett LaSalle as an example because he's currently the one in that position of just killing it. And people go like, oh, well, with enough money, blah, blah, blah. I go, you don't think there's other people that have way more money that Brett LaSalle that would want to do what he did?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Guy with a pro mod, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. There's pro mods that aren't going that fast sometimes. So, while money is important in this hobby because a lot of the advancements that have made the cars faster are expensive, right? Sure. He does have a Motec in that car. So, I say he doesn't have an insane amount of money in that car, but most of his savings have come from the labor side, not from the part side. He has probably got the best of everything in that car. But
it shows though.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, there's other cars with the same parts. Right. And they're half a second or slower or even more slower. Right. So I guess what my point is I think Brett is a intersection of both. Yes. Right? Yeah. Money, the budget at least to spend money on the right parts, but the same innovator. Right. And he started out, I watched this podcast on the Go Hard podcast the other day, and he started out, with a Fox body and just the basic stuff. And he's that type of detailed personality that like you or a lot of NA racers in general.
I'm not even that much.
No, but your mind works that way. You may not be doing it like that because
like you are.
Yeah. Well, even then I'm not doing it.
Look at the studio here.
Yeah.
This thing's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and again, I do this stuff for fun. But unfortunately, I'm jealous of Brett because he does.
I think the whole world is right now.
A little, right. And not that if I had the time, not if I had the time, I could do what he was doing. Right. I might be able to do it as he's doing, but I don't have that time to find out, and he's, but that's because he's positioned himself in a way, right. And he just got hired by TBM Brakes and his job is like, okay, I'm a rep. I'm the cool guy you get to talk to.
Is he still doing 6R80s? No, probably not.
I don't think so.
Exactly.
No.
But he worked his way up there. You know what I mean? But he was focused on that. Right. I went to my fabricator shop the other day, upstate New York, to get my car. He did the tunnel for me. Gary Boosted Fab. As soon as I pull in with the trailer, he's arguing with some other guy with a Nova about Brett. Well, it's not really it's a stock block. And I'm like, oh, here we go.
Dude, that's so fucking painful.
Oh, here we go. Then I chimed in because I had to. I go, have you seen the size of his radiator in that car? And they're like, no. I go, the thing's huge. Right. So it's a street car. It's got a giant radiator. The guy drives it. Enough said. I don't care. The guy, well, my LS guy, he runs, 599s. I go, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. So it's like the topic, like middle of upstate New York.
Yeah, it's
the topic.
He's a hot topic with everything, and
he earned it. He deserves it.
The whole stock block thing is ridiculous to me. It's like, look, guys, I get that it has sleeves in it, but no shit.
So does 11-second cars.
Yeah, but where do you go to buy if you want to build the engine he's got? Right. Where do you buy the block? From Ford. Yeah. So it's a stock block. Yeah. Yeah, you're modifying it. You're also putting different pistons in it.
The billet block's got sleeves too.
Yeah, exactly, right?
So, you got a billet block. It's got sleeves in it. Yeah. Big deal. Yeah. The guy's doing it. I don't give a shit how he does it.
But it is funny, to me, it is a big difference that you're starting with a cast Ford product.
Hell yeah.
Trying to think of what his name is. I can't remember his name, but it's an LS car that just went like 397.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, there it is. There's the rivalry. Brett versus that LS. And the minute I found out that LS had a billet block in it, I was like,
yeah, that's it.
like,
Exactly.
Like, you know.
And it's probably 480 cubic inches.
Right.
You know what I mean? I
Right.
saw that car too, and I was like,
And it's impressive. Don't get me any 3-second car. I remember when nobody had been threes, period, other than a pro mod. And then, you know, I think back in the day, you know, the drag radial guys, I think Kevin Mullins and a few other people were doing that stuff. And, you know, you're talking full out max effort race cars that probably couldn't ever get back to their pit after the end of the track, and Brett's fucking going 1,000 miles in a week. So and for people to try to shit on that, it's crazy.
It's good for him. He's they're talking about him.
Well, and you know, people, I say that all the time, like, you know, people I got a lot of friends in this industry, and they're like, dude, look at this guy saying this about me, and this guy, and I'm like, dude, they're talking about you.
That's it.
That's important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I used to love, like you said, it's easy to put a Whipple on a car, the Paxton, whatever, or any booster. And I used to go to my little Fox body to the races and whip their asses. And then open the hood, like, stock. You don't have boost? You have nitrous? No, and it's a stock motor. What? That's awesome. You know what I mean? But I'm like, so you could do it with any platform. Obviously, the NA has a limit, and I think we're going to reach that, and that's cool because everybody can catch up to that.
But the cool thing
boosted
is,
cars, you could just keep, like, you know, like Brett's going 620s, but he probably got a 6.0 in it. You know, and he probably got a 590 in it. He just hasn't had a reason to show it,
or it just takes a little bit of time.
The NA is kind of like, you're done.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, I'm hoping that, you know, with your car, we can set the bar so high that maybe people won't catch up to us. You know, like, that's always the goal, right? Like,
yeah, it does. It's good and it's bad.
Yeah,
you know, because that's what I told. I mean, my thought was set the record, make it a show car. Save a lot of money that way.
Yeah,
put it in car shows. Yeah, the world's fastest. Look at me. I'm like,
instead of having that little like plaque in front of your car, you just have a TV showing the same pass over and over again.
I'll put it on the Holly screen in the car. Sit in the car, watch the video, son.
Be like, I want to see this car run. Be like, watch it on video because I'm not running it anymore until somebody beats me.
Exactly. I am done.
Yeah. So are you pretty much 100% always a stick shift guy? Like, you know, like, let's say you get to a certain point with that car and it's like, all right, you achieve good things, but, you know, if we put a different transmission in this thing, we might be able to go faster. Like, I think
I'm open to it.
Yeah.
I'm open to it, but I've driven.
But you'd want to get to a certain point with the stick first.
Right.
Because you.
Right. Just because I'm a stick guy. A 12-second stick car is more exciting than a 9-second automatic.
Yeah. No, I agree.
You know, so it's always been like the fun of it. Like, you just feel like you're racing.
Yeah.
You know, I see guys with power glides with air shifters. I'm like, wow. And they're not running 6s. I understand if you're running a 6 or, you know, but these guys are running 6 with a H-pattern Tremex.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, these guys are nuts.
And maybe, you know, my opinion would change a little bit, but the whole air shifter thing, I'm like, dude, don't you want to do something?
Yeah.
You know, like even
it's a video game.
GT500 racing, you know, we put it in manual and we use the paddles when we're drag racing. And, you know, at first we had to do it that way because the tranny wasn't tunable. And then we were able to tune it to automatically shift at, say, 8,000. Although it wasn't super consistent. People like, hey, man, can you set my car up for auto shift? I go,
why?
That's lame, dude. And they're like, yeah, but then I won't have to hit my shift points. I'm like, you want somebody else to drive the car for you too? Yeah. Like, you know, to me, if even if it's just you know, hitting a paddle, it's something to do. And then when I do it right, I'm like, oh, I nailed it. And when you don't, you're like, oh, I got to work harder on that. Yeah. So, you know, that's my biggest problem. But I miss a stick car. I haven't had a stick car forever. Obviously, we tune a lot of stick cars. We do a lot of GT350s here, and I'll take them for a ride, or Mach 1s too. And I'm just like, man, dude, like, I convinced myself that I love automatics until I drive this fucking car. Like, it's just so much more fun. And like, you know, like I could go out here with my truck automatic or any of these Mustang automatics and just floor it and it's spinning but I'm still going. And it's just like, the acceleration is fun, but I could be going way slower with a stick car and it's 1,000 times. It just feels
like you're going faster.
And yeah, you just feel like connected to the car. That's why so many 10-speed guys wreck. Because, you know, you're not connected to the car. with a 10-speed auto, and it's just like it's spinning and you're staying in it and the wheel speed's getting up and you're just like, wow. Whereas if you're shifting it and all of a sudden you went from second to third in like a quarter of a second, you're like, I better fucking do something here. You know, like I'm gonna die. Whereas the 10-speed just like da da da, and then all of a sudden, boop, right turn into the wall. Right. I've had a bunch of 10-speed customers. I had one guy wreck his car a day after he picked it up. You know, it's a situation of like, and that's the big danger with street cars. Maybe that's where NA comes in handy. It's like it kind of keeps people safe. Yeah. Because it's so easy to make 1,000+ horsepower nowadays that I got customers show up all the time. That guy that I was telling you about, he wrecked, it was a Mach 1. He wrecked the car stock. Damn. Then we put a Pro Charger on it. He hit the wall on 95. And then a few weeks ago, here's a video going around from Cars and Coffee, and guess who it was? He goes to pull out, does like a 360, goes up on the curb, and I'm like, whew, you know, like there's just, these cars are
you should buy a Hellcat. It's much safer.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. So, you know, let's fast forward a little bit. You got the car, you know, your car running, it's doing well. Do you pretty much feel like this is your forever car at this point? You know, I talk to people about that. Like my red car, I call my forever car. Like no matter what, I'm always going to have that car. Right. I'm always going to race that car. I'll have other vehicles maybe, but that's my forever car. Are you treating this like that, this car like that? Do you feel like, you know, you're putting time and effort into it for the long haul?
I've never built a car like this. Mm-hmm. I really have, like, there's minimal zip ties in it, where the Joker was all zip ties. Right. You know, I don't know if it's a forever car. It's definitely going to be the car. It's
your most advanced car to this date.
Right.
On lots of angles.
For a customer, I built a car like 3 times better than this one.
Right.
For a customer. But for me, I'm kind of like, just put this wire there. You know,
I'm that way too. You know, my car, it's like the doctor who's fat or a hairdresser whose hair looks like shit. It's like they just don't even have time to mess with themselves necessarily. And, you know, there's been lots of times through my career. And I tried to get away from this a little bit where, you know, I go to do something and I'm like, dude, to my own car. Right. And I'm like, if I saw a customer's car come in here that had this, what I'm doing, I'd be like, this idiot.
Get this piece of shit out of here.
There's a freaking crimp connector in here and electrical tape and all this shit. But, you know, just sometimes that's the side effect of being overly busy. Yeah. So this time around, you're kind of taking your time.
So many people took so much effort. Like the engine's a work of art. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The pedal assembly, FFP pedals, it's a work of art.
Yeah, those are awesome.
You know, the transmission, it's a work of art. So I can't be a monkey with all these nice parts in the car. Like I have to compliment their work by showing, because what they did this guy did that, this guy did that. What I did has to look as good as complimenting their work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like everything's like measured 30 fucking times. Yeah. And do it this way, put this here, you know, set it up, mock it up, take it off, do it another way, mock it up again. Like this is only 1 day a week though. This is Sundays. Yeah. Because I was working 6 days a week, and at 6 o'clock, you know how it is. The last thing you want to touch is your own car.
Right, right.
So this is all Sunday when nobody's at the shop, nobody bothers me, and I would mock everything up, and I'm like, okay, I got to buy this, you know, these fasteners to work here, and this one has. So it's kind of complementing the whole car. Yeah. The car itself is a work of art. The engine's a work of art. So it's kind of like, my shit better be nice. Yeah. Because it's, you know, I'm just going to take away from this car.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good example of like who you surround yourself with kind of determines your path a little bit. In this case, you don't want to let anybody down, right? Like, oh, dude, like Chris, I built Carlos a fucking engine and look at what he did with it. Yeah.
He puts pump gas in it. Fucking monkey.
Yeah. So, you know, that's another good reason to surround yourself by good people and successful people, because you're gonna make sure you measure up. Whereas if you're the smartest guy in the room, then you get lazy sometimes. You know, and that's something I've been really successful at my whole career. Like, you know, and I got into this, I didn't know anything at all. Like, you know, I say this all the time to make it clear. I was not the guy who had a car picked out before I had a driver's license. I could give 2 shits about cars, especially performance. I didn't care. But over the years, my success came through the people that I was lucky enough to surround myself with, which in Ohio, there's a lot of people in that, it's a
very tight
for the
community.
Midwest. And there's like right now, I remote tune a lot of cars at the NMRA, and like they're all, there's 3 or 4 of them. They're all from Ohio. They're all from the same township in Ohio, Liberty Township.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then Tony Bischoff right over the border in Indiana, engine builder. It's like you don't want to let down the people that you're working with.
Right.
And in your case, you're working with some of the cream of the crop. Let's talk a little bit more about your engine builder real quick. Yeah, you mentioned his name and you did say the company once, but didn't he deal with what kind of cars were they?
He does the Panos cars.
Panos cars.
Yeah, Panos.
Yeah.
Land Power Products is where he works. Now he owns the company.
Right. So he started out just as working there. But
Head engineer. Like if you go to there, it's like a laboratory.
Yeah.
It looks like a NASCAR shop where everything's white, everything's clean. It's just amazing, that shop, So they build a lot of road race cars. Now he just did a Formula Drift car, Aston Martin. 12-cylinder twin turbo.
That's crazy.
I go, dude, my motor should be nothing compared to that one. That's got 2 extra cylinders.
Right.
4 extra cylinders in mine.
Yeah.
But it looks just like a Coyote. But the place is, the guy's a genius. Like he texts me stuff and I just look at it and I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I have no idea what these numbers mean, but I'll just pass it along to somebody who knows. But the guys at the shop, so he worked there. And then he ended up buying the business. Okay. And so he's running it now, which is great.
And they do, like you said, a little bit of everything.
Well, they do. It's all race. Like, when I ran factory stock, I would have guys ask me, oh, can you build me a street 302? And he's like, no, I build race motors. I don't build anything for the street. Nothing at all for the street. It's all strictly race.
Interesting.
Right. So that's all they do is race. If you pull up their videos on Instagram, it's kind of like, what the hell? These guys build my motor?
Do you think it's mostly to like limit volume so they can concentrate on details? Because if you're doing street cars, you got to do volume.
Well, yeah. I don't know why. He's got such, he ships motors to Europe all the time there's so many different racing series in the world. That he does like half the motors for these series. Like he was the guy who beat Roush back in the I guess 90s with the SECA, the Trans Am cars.
Oh, okay.
They were the ones that beat Roush.
Right.
You know what I mean? So they know their shit. Now they're doing motors for Celine S7s. Right. To road race all over the world. So it's pretty much he's got his niche. And why go away from it? Like he never seen a Coyote motor until he got mine. Yeah, he goes, I never seen one. I was like, you kidding me? He's like, nope, never opened one up, never seen one inside.
It's funny how some of the fancier engines they're kind of similar. Yeah, I remember at one point I was helping somebody with a Porsche. I suck at which models Porsches are, but like it's the front engine one. The
928.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like a 4-valve. Yeah. It looks a lot like a Coyote. Like, it had the valve
looks like a 2-valve though. It looks like the original 2-valves though.
Yeah. Well, this is the one I'm talking about was a 4-valve for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the guy had built a twin turbo kit for it. This is back in Ohio when I had Modular Depot. And he's like, these are kind of similar. It was before Coyote. It was, we still had the 4-valve though. And I was looking at it and I'm like, man, like, you think of like, oh, this Porsche is like, on another planet. It's not that different.
He's probably 30 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. But so, I guess that the cool thing to think about that I don't think people think about enough is how important the people are in this business. Because Chris. Yeah. You wouldn't know Chris if it wasn't for Jamie Robinson. Right. Right. If you were just some random guy that saw Chris online or whatever, you called him. Right. He might not even want to deal with you. Right. Right. Like, I don't know.
Well, about he does. He can pretty much weed out if you're serious. Yeah. Like a lot of engine builders do. You call Bischoff's the same thing. He's going to weed you out. He's going to throw a number at you and you're like, yeah, I'll bite. Or you're like, get off. I got the phone. Yep. The guys who are known already that they're not going to waste their time. Yep. Explaining to you, well, we got to do 6-inch runners instead of 6.5-inch runners because no, you're either going to do it with me, you trust me, or shut the fuck up. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point, and I think that's what's, a good way to set apart certain companies, right? If you could deal with a company and they're willing to do whatever you ask, then maybe they're not the right company, because they're just looking for a paycheck at that point. Yeah. You're not, if they're going to do everything you say, then they're not an expert. That's why you hire a pro. That's why I hire you to do my tunes. Yeah. You know what I mean? Now I got Brian Freezy. He's going to do them up there because he's local to me. Whatever. You know, he knows Holly like he knows, like, you know, my brother knows his sister in Kentucky. You know, but like I never question your tunes.
Right.
Like I go, Ken, here's a log. Okay, I took care of it. What'd you do? I never asked. What'd you do? Because I don't care.
Yep. No, never.
I know it's done.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, what'd you do different, Ken? Shut the fuck up, Carlos, and run the car. You know what I mean? It's my job. You do your job.
Yeah, I get people try that with me.
I know they do.
How much timing do we have? And I just
would it make a difference?
And my answer is I'm always a dick, you know. And I'm just like, at what temperature? At what air temperature? At what coolant temperature? At what cam timing? You know.
I love it.
And they're like, "What do you?" I just want to tell everybody on Facebook what timing I'm running, and I'm like, "It depends. At what RPM? At what load? You know."
Oh, shit.
You know, and it bothers me when people oversimplify shit. It's like I'm running 21 degrees of timing. What?
Yeah.
Like where?
Yeah.
At what RPM? What boost?
Right.
What, you know, and nothing is that simple, whether it's camshaft specs, you know, you get that all the time. Oh, I'm running you need a 110 LSA on that thing. What? Dude, you don't know what the hell you're talking about if that's how you're describing the camshaft.
I read that in the forums.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I'm not making fun of anybody out there that doesn't have the knowledge, but what I will make fun of is when you're trying to dish out knowledge that you have no experience.
Right.
You're just repeating what you read in a nowadays it's not magazines, it's the internet.
Right.
But that was super common, and that happens to this day where you know, I was talking with Kelly Aiken about this, not on the podcast, but when he was here, and just all these like zombies out on the internet that like once something happens, it catches on.
Yeah.
And then everybody's like commenting and we're like, they don't even know what they're saying.
Right.
They're just repeating what Bubba said or whatever.
Yep.
You know, like some guy who's probably doesn't know what he's saying either, but he's got a louder voice and he's saying it over and over again. And I'm just like, it kind of discourages me a little bit of the human race. You know,
Is that what it takes?
What's that?
Is that what it takes?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that discourage me about the human race, but you know, it's just like this guy's saying this, but if you were able to, or even cared enough to take the time and go, how did you form that opinion?
Right.
His only answer is, this guy told me that.
Right.
You know, like they don't even like,
no.
They have no critical thinking at all.
It's funny and it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, but it's kind of, you have to take it for its worth. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, you see somebody sticks out. You're like, oh, wow, that's.
The same guy that talks like that is the guy when we're tuning them. I'm like, you got a vacuum leak, go look for it. But like, how do I do that?
Right.
I'm like, bro, like if you don't know how to look for a vacuum leak.
What's a vacuum leak?
Well, what? Yeah. We had a guy the other day that we're like, what spark plug gap you were in? I don't know. I didn't put the car together. A mechanic did that. All right, we'll take one out. I look at it. I can't, I don't know. I'll have to take it back to the mechanic. I'm like, dude.
Wow.
You can't take a spark plug out. You probably can't change your tire if you get a flat either. That's really sad.
AAA.
Yeah. You know, and you know, if you're listening to this and you're that guy, then step it up. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard. Like most of the people
Before you say I can't do it, when he asks you to do something, pull up a YouTube. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Pull up a YouTube video real fast. Come back and say, I got this.
Well, that's exactly right. Like fake it till you make it, bro.
Right,
like
bro,
just like,
exactly.
okay, where's the spark plug?
Right.
It's behind that thing. It's got
Right.
an 8mm on it. What do I need to do? Well, take that bolt out. All right, what's the next step?
Exactly.
Like just try. Like you're not
Exactly.
going to blow it up.
Dude, I put a sock in my pants just so I don't have to say I have a small one. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
so what?
Yeah.
So what? It works.
I just love the people that like, and there's both ends of those spectrum, right? You got the guy who won't even take a spark plug out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got all these guys that are overconfident putting oil pump gears in their engines. And they're like, it only sounds like it's running on one side of the motor because it is.
Why is one bank? I got a misfire on the bank.
Yeah, you know,
I did it just like the video said.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. So I guess there's somewhere in between, you know, you get the guys that are overconfident because they feel like,
Yeah.
oh, I'll just watch a
I
YouTube
like those
video.
better though.
Yeah. I'd rather you try it and fail.
Right. As long
Failure
as you don't
is
bend
the key to
anything or
success.
destroy anything. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many of your failures is why you know what you know today, right? Most of them.
Oops.
Or somebody, it's either your failure or you watch somebody else do the same thing and fail and go, yeah, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know, but
I need
it's
to pay more attention to that.
it's when you're scared to do it at all That's really the problem. So, let's go back to the new car. So, obviously lots of things are just cookie cutter type stuff, but I'm sure there's some unique parts to the vehicle or some things that are kind of special. What are some things that stand out to you about the new car?
Probably the most difficult part was on the GF 2000 transmission. You have, of course, you got the clutch. Then you have the bell housing. So I called Browl up, which I should have done the Git, but they told me it was like 18 weeks for the bell housing. So I'm like, I don't have time for that. It was like a year and a half ago. So I had the QuickTime bell housing, which is a short bell housing for a dual 7-inch clutch. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, how the hell do I make this work? Because then the guy from Advanced Clutches, Rob Youngblood, says, you got to run a hydraulic throw bearing. Now, I'm a fork guy. I've always been a fork guy. He goes, you can't fit a fork in a QuickTime bell housing with a dual 7-inch. So I'm like, who do I know that knows clutches pretty good? I'm like, oh, shit, Bob Hanlon. Yay, my hero. Yeah, he hated the job. But so he went ahead and got me. I mean, it's pretty genius because the hydraulic bearing. So G-Force made an adapter plate from the bell housing to the transmission. Bob figured out, he got the, I guess, what do you call that part in the sleeves, the input shaft, the
bearing retainer?
Yes,
yeah.
The bearing retainer. He figured out how to put a bearing retainer onto that plate. So pretty much the whole clutch setup is contained in the bell housing with the throw-up bearing.
Oh, okay.
The trans can be out of the car. You can do all the clutch adjustments.
Oh, wow.
Without the trans being in the car.
That's awesome.
I was like, dude, so badass. Because I was like pulling my hair. I go, how am I going to make this work? She's like, well, it's pretty easy. You do this, you do that. And, give me the bell housing and I'll make a retainer plate for it and the bearing retainer and all this shit. I was like, yeah. So the bearing retainer is part of the bell housing.
That's awesome.
Instead of being part of the trans is just the input shaft.
So when it comes out, it looks like it's missing the bearing retainer on the trans, and there's not like a big hole anymore.
No, just a hole for the input shaft.
Oh, okay.
So the bearing sits on a bearing retainer inside the bell housing. Yeah. So it's like,
and to bring up Hanlon, he goes way back to the early NMRA days, right?
Oh my God.
Like, he's a Tremec guy, right? For the most part, or just transmissions in general.
He was a T5 guy. When I first spoke to him, that's when I'm my street racing days,
right?
Because I was blowing up a T5 every week,
right?
And he's like, so I call him up because I just read him in the magazine, in the back of the magazine. So I call him up and he's like, hi, my name is Carlos. He's like, well, I'm blowing up a lot of T5s. And he's like, well, what are you doing? I go, well, Wednesday I go to Englishtown. I get about 3 or 4 passes in. Thursday I'm street racing the car in Staten Island. Friday I'm street racing it in the Bronx. Saturday I'm street racing it in Jersey. And Sunday I'm going back to Englishtown. He's like, so how many passes a day? I go, like 5 passes. He goes, 5 times 5 is 25. You're power shifting? I go, yeah. He goes, you're doing 25 power shifts a week. He goes, you're doing right. You're doing just fine. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, you can't, these things have they're ticking time bombs.
Right.
But you're going 25 power shifts a week. That's pretty good. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's not, nothing we could do about it. He goes, no, this is back in the day. So that was 30 years ago, maybe, when he was doing it part-time, when Hamlin Motorsports was like a part-time job for him. But he's always been the nicest guy.
That's awesome.
But then he moved to Tremix, and he's still with the Tremix, I guess, but it's more, he's tired. He wants to go to Aruba, and I don't blame him.
Yeah. No, I don't blame him either. I'd go there too myself, but I spend too much money on cars. I got to keep working.
Yeah.
So what other kind of stuff is done to the new car that
let me see.
You said you switched out he had a normal window in there and you put optic armor in it?
Oh, yeah. We changed all the windows, optic armor, of course. Aaron.
Do they put them in the doors too or no?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
the back window, the doors,
and those
windshield.
Are just fixed windows on the doors, or
the doors you got to cut them out.
Okay.
You got to grab the original. It's angled.
Yeah.
Like the glass. You got to lay it on there, do it up, because some guys want to bolt it to the outside. Some want to put it inside like a regular Mustang.
How do you have yours?
Inside.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It looks like a stock. It's got
so it doesn't have all the bolts around it.
No.
I don't love that, man. I think if you're gonna, but they don't go down yours, right?
No.
Right. But at least it looks.
It looks like they do.
Yeah,
Right. It
That's
looks like
that's how I.
It just looks nicer. It's a cleaner look.
Because that's instantly your hood probably is going to distract him from the windows, but
You love that.
I do love that hood. But when I see the bolts on the windows with all the way, I'm like, I don't.
It's
like
just
that.
race car.
It's super race.
Does
car.
Brett have that? I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know. I do remember when I was on Drag Week, I was hanging out with Real Street Jay, who was an NMRA guy too. He ran Real Street, and that's why it's called Real Street. And it was hot, and they had their Supra, it was like a low 7-second deal, so it was a serious deal. But they had those types of windows, and it was so hot. They don't have AC. They had to unbolt the windows every time, and it's like, it's hilarious. I'm like, man, it started to really look like a race car right now. And then it would start raining.
Now we're hot and wet.
yeah, exactly. But anyway, so what else we got on the new car that you said we didn't talk too much about the clutch. You said it was an advanced clutch?
Yeah, advanced clutches. There's like a bunch. It's Rob Youngblood. I think he's out of Illinois, Wyoming or something.
Okay.
But he does all like a lot of super stockers and stuff like that. But it's a beautiful piece. Yeah, Andy Johnson hooked me up with him because that's what Andy recommended, and I'm like,
there was a bunch of people in Coyote Stock running that for a while. No, or I know Andy did.
He's got a version of it, a legal,
not
version.
The one that you're using, but that company.
Something, But the guy's really good. Like he's really knowledgeable. Like you call him, you text him whatever time, and he curse you out that you're an idiot.
Is he more mostly race or street too? They do street stuff.
Race
only.
I think it's mainly race.
Race or like serious.
Yeah, but he makes it all himself, which is nice. He machines the flywheel.
So it's a small operation.
Yeah. That took like 3 months to get mine.
Okay.
But I wasn't in a rush anyway. And it's a beautiful piece. I wish I had a see-through bell housing on my car. It's gorgeous.
Right.
And then who else? When I broke the rear when I crashed the Joker. So I fixed that. That was Worldwide Bearings hooked me up with Dave over at Worldwide.
Are you using like ceramic stuff?
Just on the axles.
Yep.
Because he doesn't do any tapered stuff.
Okay.
So he just hooked me up with some bearings for the axles, and that's pretty much it. I think.
What's your opinion on things like the ceramic bearings? Do you think they really make much of a difference? And again, we go back to Coyote Stock where you got to like every little detail.
Yeah.
Do you see a point of diminishing returns on like something like that where, I know Andy, for instance, you brought him up.
Right.
He was that, I don't know him that well, but I know him through Facebook, and he seems like the guy that's like trying to pick every little part.
There's
like
guys worse than him.
The top of the top. Well, he talks a lot too.
No. There's guys worse than him. I mean, there was one guy who actually treated his needle bearings in his U-joints.
Really?
I'm not going to say his name.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sent out his U-joints to have the needle bearings coated.
That's insanity.
I was like, what? Are you kidding me? He's like, no, man, for real. I'm like, you got to be. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I'm all for being detail oriented, but that seems little
it's much. A little extreme.
Yeah, like
who even thinks of that?
Anything that moves, we need to coat it, and lighten it, or whatever.
I can imagine the guy who told him about it. Hey man, you know what you should do? You should coat your needle bearings. The guy ran away, walked, we're laughing, and the guy's like, man, he's right.
But one thing you have to remember. There's a company that took his money to do it.
Oh, yeah. The guy got blue Sharpie, painted them blue.
They're like, yeah, sure.
Look inside. Actually, they're sealed. Don't open them.
Yeah. Well, getting to like a more common type of thing. What about like things like lightened gears and the micro polishing on like ring and pinions? Like, we got into that in the pure street days, but I'm just not, I'm not convinced
it's funny.
It helps.
It depends who you talk to.
Yeah.
Because I seen this, the guys that scallop their spools.
Yep.
And then I see guys that tell me, no, it just creates turbulence. Leave it flat. And I'm like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But the lighter makes sense. But then they're like, well, there's some places where you want some weight.
Right.
Some places that you don't want weight. Some places that you do for inertia.
Right.
So it's like, who's right and who's wrong? You know who's right? The guy with the least money.
Yeah,
because he's going to make the right choice.
Right. Yeah.
I can't afford that. That works for me. I'll make it work, dude. Because my car's got Pep Boys bearings in the front.
Right.
The Joker, that thing had Pep Boy stuff on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. In a lot of cases, in theory, some things should help. But like somebody's coming out with carbon fiber hats, for a GT 500 for the rotor, like the centerpiece. But it's at the center of the wheel. So like the weight savings there doesn't help as much as if it was the actual rotor. The rotor would make a difference because it's further out from where it's rotating. But, the same thing happens with drive shafts. Everybody talks about super lightweight drive shafts. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter as much as you think. It's more about the strength in the drive shaft because it has to do with the moment of inertia and how far the weight is away from where the rotation point is. And if it's, how many people have put a drive shaft in their car and gone to the track and think, I gotta go like 2/10 quicker, and it's like, I think it's a little quicker. Maybe.
They had a tailwind. The flywheels. That's been the biggest argument from flywheels forever. Each one has its advantage. A heavy one has an advantage, and so does a light one.
Yeah. Well, and it comes down to the fact of, I guess that's where money comes in,
right?
Because you could do it whether it works or not,
right?
Like it's not going to hurt. So let's do it, and maybe everything's good, or maybe it helps and maybe it doesn't, but who cares? I have enough money to do every little thing. So that is where the money comes in, where you said the guy with less money is choosing the stuff that works the best, but he may be missing out on a B or C mod, I would call it. That maybe helps a little bit, you know. What's your opinion on, this is a hot topic in the streetcar world, oil. Do you really,
yes,
people, so there's something there.
Yes.
You don't have to give up any secrets, but
no.
And we're talking just engine oil, or like, what about like rear end fluid, like all the fluids in a vehicle? How important do you, the choice there?
I run LAT. I get it from Ricardi Racing. LAT. When I was doing all that dynoing with the car before winning the Coyote stock races. That was pretty much one of the areas. I had 5 heaters on my oil pan because this oil likes to be at a certain temperature.
Gotcha.
Now,
is that something you figure out on your own, or they tell you?
They tell you.
Okay.
Run it at this temperature.
Okay.
So then we ran at that temperature and it picked up. I'm like, let's try it a little hotter. And let's try a little hotter. Let's put another pan on it. Oh shit! The hotter it got, the more it picked up. The only problem is it burned the diaper. Literally, I'm like, man, that shit smells like shit. Yeah, man, these heaters are smelling funny today. They melted the diaper on it.
Right.
But there's shit like that. Like Mobile One is good. Joe Gibbs is great.
Right.
But do they tell you, hey, run it at this temperature? You know what I mean? They don't.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it does. But these guys tell you, look, this is the temperature. You ask Ricky, and he's like, this temperature. Okay. And we tried it on the dyno, like, hey, man, it worked. From cold to this temperature, it works. Let's try it a little hotter. Let's try a different grade at a little hotter. Let's try with the water a little hotter instead of just the oil hot.
Yeah.
All these little things make a difference. Yeah. But that's just because you have time. My friend lent me his dyno, and we had time to fuck with it.
Now, and you were running sealed engines a lot of the time, so you may not have as much insight here, but I'll ask anyway. There's 2 things you're trying to accomplish with oil, right? If you're messing with oil, you're trying to make more horsepower.
Right.
But in this case, are you hurting lubrication in any case, do you think? Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, running those oils that make more power, are you also possibly exposing yourself to more damage, do you think?
Depends on the oil too.
Yeah.
Because I know guys running 0.5, 0.10.
Yeah.
I would never do that.
That's why I'm asking.
Right. I never ran that. No, this is a 30. This is a straight 30.
Right. So the 0.5 might work as far as power, but you're going to hurt your engine eventually.
Right.
Whereas a more engineered oil that's not just based off the weight, but whatever else they're doing.
Right. I can run baby oil in the car.
Yeah.
Olive oil.
Right.
It'll work.
Right.
It'll be fast, but ain't gonna last.
Yeah.
So like I said, this company actually and I don't get the shit for free. I'm not promoting them. I got to pay like everybody else. But it made a difference on the dyno. And it's still a 30 weight. It's a straight 30.
Right.
So it's in a straight 30, hot, cold. Like I said, we've tried with the factory stock car. We used to run like 0.10.
Right.
And like, this is just for the finals. That's it. We're going to run this all day.
Right.
Because this phone is expensive. But it makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Yeah.
Like I said, we only experimented with the engine.
Yeah.
But we didn't. The other ones, the trans and the rear, I had heaters on both of them, believe it or not.
Right.
But it made no difference.
Yeah, and that's another question that comes up all the time to me, like, what rear end fluid should I run? And I'm like, I personally just stick to, Motorcraft or whatever.
Yeah, that works too.
Because it works and it's
Right.
not causing any problems. I remember when, I used to help Sean Johnson back in the day at Factory Stock, and he ran like a real specific, high impact red line rear end fluid. And I'm like,
shit never comes
is
up.
this guy crazy or does it actually help? And things like that. Or, I think that might have been more for durability reasons that he was using that than necessarily any kind of power there. But the oil is a good example. We may have not even mentioned that, but you've got, that might be worth a few thousands.
Right.
Maybe your ceramic bearings are worth a couple of thousands. Maybe, your wheel choice weight is, and that's what people don't get, and I use Coyote Stock as an example all the time to people, because when people doubt somebody's performance, he's lying.
Right.
I go, well, look at Coyote Stock. You get a new guy come in. I remember back when it was the Gen 1, let's say they were running 1040s, right? And then somebody like Doug Johnson, who was running Pure Street before, gets a Coyote Stock and comes in and runs 1080s.
Right.
It's like, is there something wrong with his engine? Are these guys cheating? It's no. It's like those 410s are some of it might be driving, right? But there's other things that are being done there that somebody like Doug, and Doug is a seasoned racer, and he realized, he may have needed to step up, but other people will do that and go like, this is bullshit. I got the same shit as they got, and they're cheating, or there's something that I don't know about. It's like, there's something you don't know about, but they're not cheating. Right. I mean, maybe some of them are, but most of the time it's just not good, hot rodding tricks or driving or, and this happens constantly in the street car market where people, the minute you do something that is faster than everybody else, it's like, oh, you're lying.
You're cheating.
You're cheating.
I love it. I've heard that my whole life and I love it.
Yeah. And I guess that's a compliment, but it gets frustrating sometimes because it also throws shade at your effort, right? A little bit.
Nah, if you hear it enough, you get used to it. And it's kind of like,
I'm at that point now.
Kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I used to be more of an arguer,
I remember you.
Where it's like, no, and I would like
Turkish bar in Orlando, no.
I still tell that story all the time.
What makes you remember that story?
I remember when we took the Hellion guys there the second year, remember? Yeah, we took them. The first year was when I was totally out in left field, and you had to like keep me from getting killed.
We had to lock the guys.
And then the next year, we're like, we need to go back there.
Yes.
And, but we were like way more sober, so like it wasn't as cool. And we brought Dwayne James and a couple other people.
That's right.
And they're standing over in the corner,
like more cordial. Yeah.
They're like, where in the hell did they bring us? And I'm like, I remember this being cooler. It's like, yeah, because I probably had 10,000 times more alcohol.
Yes, we all did.
All right. So right now we're in May.
Right.
So you're thinking June, July, we're going to see this car maybe make some first test hits. Now you said, of course, maybe you're not going to tell people right off the bat because you want to get it dialed in and make a big splash with it and not go, hey, I went to the track and I went 1050s. Nothing against people who go 1050s, but obviously
not when you build a car like this. You have a 12-second car, you run 1050. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So hopefully by June, man. Hopefully next month we should be out. I'm hoping.
Yeah. You know what I'd like to see is obviously if you're talking June, July, that kind of sets you up to maybe be in good shape to do, bring it out to, even if you don't like fit a class, just to bring it out and have some fun at like Mod Nats. I'm trying to get you down here, obviously.
No doubt.
Mod Nats, FL2K, things like that. Just show it off. I think FL2K, we could probably set you up with some really cool grudge races down here.
That'd be cool.
You can even run, depending on what it'll run, even like no time would be kind of like run the no time class with it. People would freak out. Like,
that's all on the horizon. I hope.
What's done to that car? It's all motor. Good luck.
With a stupid hood.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming down. You made a special trip just for this. That means a lot to me. You've been a great friend for a really long time, and I can't wait to see how all this works out with the new car.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Loved it.
Thanks
a lot, brother. You're the man.